Hello, dear viewers. Support me by subscribing to my channel and share my video if you like it. And also, make sure you comment your thoughts. Now let's start the video.
Their visit to the nymph enclosure was met, as usual, with much blushing and curtsying. Harry rolled his eyes and nodded at Zira. "Good evening, Zira. How are things going here?" he asked. Zira smiled and bowed slightly to him. "All is well, Lord Harry." Then she bowed the same way at Natasha, Lady Natasha. Harry smiled back. "That is always good to hear. Are you ready for a little outing?" "Oh yes, please. We have been practicing to control our allure. But we have been unable to test our progress as we are all immune to the effect." Zira said, "Then tonight will be perfect. We'll be taking you to the greenhouses first, where I've been able to arrange for a friend to meet with us." Harry said. Zira nodded and asked, "Are we going now?" "We can," Harry said, turning around and looking at Natasha. "Anything I'm forgetting?" Natasha looked thoughtful and shrugged. "We should probably fly there. It would give the ladies a better idea of what they will be working with. It is full moon tonight. You are going to fly us there. How?" Zira asked with a look of both excitement and concern on her face. "Magic carpet, would that be an issue?" Harry asked. He had personally transported their trees through a jumbo-sized portal. They had never flown before. Zira looked uncomfortably at a couple of her fellow nymphs before turning back to Harry. "There are some of us who feel the need to maintain contact with the ground to feel connected to our trees. I fear that some will not like the experience," she informed them with a wry smile. "Could it harm you? We can go slowly and close to the ground at first if that helps. I really would like to show you the island now that you've settled in, but I won't risk your health." Harry said. "I am willing to try, Lord Harry." Zira said, squaring her shoulders. "But could you just take me for now? I can then tell them of what I learned. It would allow those with a fear of heights to avoid the experience," she requested. "Of course," Harry said as he started leading them to the exit. "You may want to close your eyes while we go through the barrier," he said as he offered Zira his hand. She took it and closed her eyes as Harry pulled her through the barrier, which she could not pass on her own yet. They led her outside and Harry pulled out the carpet again. "Okay, let's try this." Zira looked at the carpet dubiously but stepped onto it and sat down next to Natasha. Harry lifted them up slowly and he watched her closely. Her eyes were slightly wider than normal. "Are you okay?" he asked when she volunteered nothing. Zira looked at Harry and slowly a smile grew on her face. "Yes, I'm fine. I can still feel my tree and my sisters through the magic of your land." Harry smiled in relief. "That's great because I want to try something quickly, and I think a little more altitude will make the effect more pronounced." As he said it, he started flying off to the western side of the island. He continued monitoring Zira, but she seemed almost giddy the entire time. When he reached near the edge of the boundary of his island's wards, a mile away from the shore, he stopped the carpet, closed his eyes and started focusing his magic, just as a cloud bank slipped in front of the moon. It took him a while to access the magic running through the island from where they were, but once he did, he started willing a change. He could feel the magic slowly responding and let it build. He knew they were seeing what he was doing when there was a sharp intake of breath from both Natasha and Zira. "It is so beautiful," Zira whispered reverently. Natasha simply pulled Harry into a kiss before he had a chance to open his eyes. When she broke the kiss, Natasha moved herself into his lap and pulled his arms around her as they watched the island. Harry watched with no small amount of awe himself at what he had done. The island seemed to glow with the nimbus, as millions of pinpricks of multicolored light lifted and floated into the air from the island. There they bobbed and floated, making the entire island look like it was covered in floating Christmas lights. "That's a bit more than I had planned on," Harry admitted, "but now you can see the island. The lights should last for another hour or so." Zira did not respond, and when Harry placed a hand on her shoulder to gain her attention, she jumped. As if she had been shocked by his presence, Harry saw the tears running down her cheeks. "Are you okay?" he asked for the second time that night. Zira pulled herself together and nodded vigorously. "I'm sorry, Lord Harry, I do not mean to cry in your presence," she said as she looked away. "What's wrong?" Harry asked. Zira was quiet for a second before responding. "This is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen and experienced. How could I not weep?" she asked. Natasha felt like there was more to it. By the way, Zira refused to make eye contact, her body language and her tone of voice, but let it go for now. Maybe she should speak to Zira later in private. "I agree. Harry has done something amazing again." Then she turned and smirked at Harry. "And again he didn't warn anyone and I expect a call from someone on the island soon." Harry almost jumped when his mirror vibrated in his pocket. Natasha reached in and answered for him. "Hi." Logan's face was on the other side. "Harry doing this?" he asked. "Yes," Natasha said. "It should last only an hour." Logan smirked. "The kids are loving it." He then moved the mirror to show the kids sitting around a campfire looking up in awe at the colorful lights. Then Logan appeared in the mirror again. Warn me next time. Campfire stories shouldn't end with awe. It should end with screams and fear of the dark. He said with a dark smile. Poor kids. Harry muttered, it's part of the experience. Logan said just before he closed the connection. Harry smiled and heard Natasha make another mirror call while her cell phone came out to record what the island looked like. Hello, sister-in-law, came Loki's voice when he answered the mirror. If you're calling about the lights, I've already informed everyone that Harry's magic is at work and not to worry. Natasha took a moment and then said, thanks. If you get a moment in the next hour, I suggest you close the bar for a couple of minutes and fly off the island to look at it. It's spectacular. Then she turned the mirror around so Loki could see. Loki looked at the island through the mirror and then without closing the connection he could be heard offering, who wants to see this from the carpet? That's when the connection was closed. Harry hugged Natasha closer to him before slowly starting their way around the island, so that they could point things out to Zira. All too soon they were finished with the circuit and flying to the greenhouses. When they arrived, Harry landed them next to the first greenhouse. It was one of the few without deadly plants being cultivated in them. Harry checked the time and said, we got here just in time. A minute later the lights started fading. If you ladies would quickly excuse me, he asked. Natasha nodded and Harry disappeared. Soon a portal appeared and Harry stepped through with Hank. Hank was still saying. And then he took us to see the island from outside the lights. It was truly amazing, and the uses in case of emergencies for such illumination. He then looked up as if noticing for the first time that they were somewhere new. Oh, I'm sorry, my dear, I seem to have forgotten my manners, he said as he noticed Zira and offered his furry hand to her. My name is Dr. Henry McCoy, but you may call me Hank. Zira looked at the well-spoken, blue-furred man and smiled at him. It is a pleasure to meet one of Lord Harry's friends. My name is Zira and people call me by that name, she said as she took the offered hand and shook it. She controlled her power tightly, trying not to affect his emotions. Hank seemed polite enough, but Harry needed to be certain. Zira here is a nymph. I'd like to allow her people to freely roam the island, but they have a magical aura called an allure, which draws men to them, and we need to know if they have theirs under control before I can allow them that freedom. Hank looked at Harry sharply. You're keeping them prisoner. Zira jumped into the conversation. No, Lord Harry saved us from a life on the run. He has given us a safe haven and wants only our assurances that we will not affect the people of his land against their will or better judgment. We are here very willingly, she assured him. Hank looked at Harry then and said, I am sorry, my friend. I seem to have jumped to conclusions. He then straightened up. How can I be of service? Harry smiled at the big blue man. Not a problem. Your first instinct to protect people is a good one to have and only gives you more worth in my estimation of your character. What we would like from you is to tell us if her allure is affecting you. Do you feel the unnatural need to follow Zira around? Are you in full possession of your faculties? Hank tilted his head to the side and thought about it before answering. Well, if I'm honest with myself, I believe I find her attractive. Her clothing is slightly too revealing and her attributes are rather impressive, but that's all skin deep. I'd have to spend more time with the young lady to find out if we could be anything more than friends, though I doubt it. I think I may be too old for her to find my company very appealing. Zira blushed at his rather frank assessment of her looks, and then laughed at his statement about her age. You flatter me, as I am older than 250 years. She said. Hank's eyes widened. Really, how old do your people become? Is it a healing factor or do you sustain yourself on something that prolongs your lives? Do you? He started asking rapid-fire questions. Hold on there, Hank, Harry interrupted. Ask your questions as we walk. Zira, by no means are you compelled to answer either. Answer only what and how you are comfortable with. That's right. We'll be looking at the greenhouses next. Natasha agreed. This has been a long day and Harry and I have a lot to do tomorrow. Let's go, she said as she led the way to the greenhouse door hidden from view by a simple illusion. She opened the door, canceling the illusion, and led them inside, Harry smiling all the way. He knew she wanted some alone time with him. He'd sensed it ever since he lit the island from the carpet. Wood nymphs such as Zira here have an affinity for plants in the land where their trees are planted. We're hoping her and her people could have a positive effect on the growth of the plants in my greenhouses and over the island, Harry explained. Ah, Hank said, like the stories of dryads or hamadryads. Hamadryads from this world's mythology, yes. They are physical beings, not spirits like dryads are supposed to be. Natasha confirmed, having done her own research on any creature Harry brought to the island. I'm assuming that their lifespan is connected to their trees then, Hank asked, looking at Zira as they walked, but he thought he understood her age now. You are correct, Zira said. My people can live for as long as our trees live. If we die, so do our trees. If our trees die, so do we. Fascinating, Hank stated while he considered this. Here we are, Harry began. Hank, you should recognize this from the memory earlier today. Hank did remember the plant, and Harry had him harvest some of the plant to see if he'd paid attention in the memory. Hank performed admirably and did no undue harm to the plant. He seemed to have a steady hand and an understanding of how to hold the plant as he handled it with care. Zira nodded along as Hank explained what he was doing and recalling the instructions from when Harry taught Bruce. Your understanding of this plant is great. Do you work with it often? Hank smiled at her and said. Harry allowed us to view a memory of him giving someone instruction on handling this plant correctly earlier today. I have never handled this plant before. Zira's eyebrows rose. Either you are a prodigy or Harry is a very good instructor, she said. Hank is quite the intellect. He studies the very foundations of life, Harry said, referring to the fact that Hank was a geneticist. Harry is not a bad instructor either. He gave his student everything he needed to succeed on his own without needing to repeat himself, Hank countered. That being said, his student from the memory is also considered one of the greatest intellects on the planet. Okay boys, stop clapping each other on the back. We get it, you're both modest and awesome. Natasha joked. Now Zira, can you connect to these plants? She asked. Let me try, she said as she closed her eyes and focused on the land at her bare feet, the life she could feel all around her and the magic that her tree was getting from the land. Harry was watching as Zira started to glow slightly. He felt her presence grow in his mind and looked at Hank. It seemed her control was slipping as Hank's eyes had a bit of a vacancy, but he was pulling himself out of it with some effort. Natasha was not showing any emotions, though she never looked away from Zira. He then noticed the plants around them. Zira, stop, he said hurriedly. Zira stopped instantly and opened her eyes. She was shocked to realize that the small bushes and plants she had been standing next to had grown more than 3 times their original height. I'm sorry, I didn't know. She apologized to Harry quickly. Harry chuckled. No need to apologize, you were doing exactly what you were asked. Then he explained, the problem is the plants draw nutrients from the ground. We made allowances for growth with the nutrients that were introduced before planting here. But you almost reached that level. Any longer and the plants may have died. Can you tell that? I have a spell for it, but you probably have a different method, he asked. Zira closed her eyes for a second and glowed very faintly. Harry doubted the other two could even see it. You are correct, Lord Harry, I did not take that into consideration, she said, still apologetically. I told you not to apologize. You didn't know how strong you had become. Nor did you know that the fertilizer we use has magical properties. Plants grow quickly in the greenhouses already due to that, Harry explained. Next time use your power with your eyes open. You'd have seen that your allure was affecting Hank here. He is strong-willed though and was fighting it quite successfully. He would ask Natasha about why she was staring later. Zira's eyes widened as she looked at Hank. Before she could apologize once more, Hank held a hand up to stop her. Had I not been warned, I may have taken offense. But I was, and you were able to keep yourself under control until you used your power. I count that as a success, he said as he turned to Harry. What do you think? He asked. That's right. At this point, as long as you know what makes you lose control and you can keep from doing that around people, I think you are good to go. Just make sure the others are up to your level before you leave your grove. It is still your safe haven and your home where the wards were set to protect you, Harry said. Zira smiled at this. Thank you, Lord Harry. My sisters will be pleased to hear that. They are already at my level as we practice together, but I would ask that Hank accompany us to confirm that, if that would be all right, she asked, looking at Hank. What do you think, Hank? Do you want to spend the day tomorrow with a bunch of beautiful ladies all wanting your approval? Harry joked. Hank caught his tone and smiled back. I don't see why not. If they are in need of my assistance, I shall endeavor to provide it. He then turned to Zira and bowed slightly. It would be a pleasure to help you in this regard, my dear. Zira smiled at him and thanked him as Harry led the way back out of the greenhouse. Once outside, he opened a portal to the nymph enclosure and walked through with everyone. This is how the enclosures are secured, Zira, Harry said, pointing at the sign. You read the sign above the door and it tells you the name of the enclosure. That then allows you to exit because it is the secret. You cannot say it out loud around people who don't know the secret. So when Hank has approved someone, you must lead them through the barrier like I did for you and then bring them out here to teach them the secret. Zira nodded. I think I understand. I've gone through that process at the Institute. Hank said, I can help if they get stuck. Great, Harry enthused. They bid their farewells and Harry opened another portal to the bar. They all walked through and Harry took a seat at the bar and ordered a 50-year-old fire whiskey from his brother. It was the best that they made in mortal standards and Harry seldom drank of it, taking Odin's advice to heart that it was only good because it wasn't something you do every day. Hank was soon discussing their trip with Charles, Jean and Scott, who tried not to act jealous that Hank had seen real-life nymphs. Meanwhile, Harry was inundated with questions about the light show. Apparently it was appreciated greatly. He'd have to remember that trick. The night soon came to an end as Natasha kept on dropping hints about getting to bed. Okay people, Natasha and I are headed off to bed. If anyone here has too much to drink, I can cast sobering charms in the morning. The same schedule will be followed as today, Harry said as he turned to Loki. Bar closes at 2 a.m. latest, if you don't mind, he said to Loki as he cast a spell on him, and then concentrated on the bar counter to add a feature he had been meaning to for a while. After a minute, he attached his latest enchantment to a specific portion of the counter. There you go. When you wish to lock the bar like I normally do, just place your hand on this section of the bar and hold it there for a couple of seconds. The lights will turn off when the security wards go up, Harry told him. Use the same process to unlock, he said as he started following an impatient Natasha to their place. I'll be fine, I'm sure, good night, Loki said, looking over the people at the bar who were still enjoying the free alcohol. He'd have to ask Darcy to accompany Marie to her room just in case. She had been enjoying her newfound freedom to indulge just a slight bit too much. Darcy had been chatting with Marie since lunch. They were hitting it off quite well, Loki thought. Hopefully Darcy's carefree attitude would rub off a bit on the poor girl, as Loki understood it. She had only recently been able to start enjoying physical contact, and she was still quite shy. Apply some Darcy and alcohol and that was soon changing. Darcy was one of those that were prone to outward displays of affection while in her cups, it seemed. Loki was proud of his brother for what he heard from the patrons as he worked behind the bar. Apparently Harry had been working with the mutants since shortly after his arrival here. There were many stories being told, and Loki listened happily as everyone spoke of how Harry had impacted their lives for the better. Meanwhile, the moment Harry closed the door to his house, Natasha was on him like a rash. The next morning, Harry woke up with the alarm. Natasha had gotten up before him again. He didn't know how she did it without waking him, but he wasn't complaining. The extra rest he got was a good sign. If she was angry at him for something, he suspected she could be less cautious. He followed the same routine as the day before, starting by preparing breakfast for the kids before he would do the same for the adults. He had gone to pick Darcy up beforehand this time. He had even supplied her with a cup of coffee to get her through the morning. He cast a sobering charm on Marie when he saw her appearance, but had chuckled under his breath about it. Apparently Darcy had accompanied her to her room the night before and tried to get her to drink some water. He'd have to thank her for the extra effort at some point. Harry offered to show another memory and got a welcome amount of excitement at the idea. He ended up showing them the first 2 Triwizard tasks, with a bit of background about the clues he had beforehand. When they were busy watching that, he went to fetch Natasha again so that he could start testing the new room of requirement. The next 2 hours was spent on experimentation, and Harry found that it was working as it should, except for the minor detail that the room's creations could now move past the door for a short bit. Not any large distance, but enough to be able to travel a couple of yards away from the door. This had obviously given Harry an idea, but he planned to get to that at a later stage. They went to the Pensive and found the people sitting around and chatting excitedly about the things they had seen, while Loki served behind the bar again. He seemed to like working behind the bar. Harry wouldn't deny him a bit of fun. Loki wasn't exactly popular to begin with. It seemed that his being trapped in a female form was helping a bit as well. Harry came the call from Marie. That was awesome, the dragon and the mermaids and the magic. She exclaimed every statement as she all but bounced where she stood after having run up to him. Natasha looked at Harry and asked, Triwizard, first 2 tasks. Harry confirmed. Natasha smiled and said that was still mild. You should see the end of his 2nd year. Nothing quite as scary as being stuck in an ancient sewer with a giant snake that can kill you with a look. Marie paled. Giant snake, how old were you? She asked Harry. I think I was 12 at the time. Harry said offhandedly. Marie just gaped. Charles decided to break the silence by chuckling. You seem to get into almost as much trouble as the children. More, Natasha muttered. Harry looked at her and said indignantly, Hey, it's been months since the last problem. It's not been 2 weeks, Harry. Natasha returned, crossing her arms in front of her chest. Harry flinched. Oh yeah. Well, it's definitely not as often as them, he said stubbornly. Only because there's more of them and they don't all have control of their powers yet, Charles stated. It is useful that you can just repair things with a spell though. He does? Natasha asked. Oh yes, Hisako still has control issues sometimes. Her psionic armor can form and grow out of control. She grew out of the top of the building one evening while having a nightmare and was quite inconsolable until Harry waved his hand. Fixed everything and told her she had nothing to be sorry about. Charles said with a smile, that wasn't her fault. Harry defended the girl. Nightmares affects everyone differently. Natasha could only agree, having seen what could happen when Harry had a bad dream. "We're here to send anyone that wanted to join today's hike through to the camp," she said, changing the subject. "Right," Harry said. He turned a portal into being and pointed at it. "They should be leaving shortly." Pretty soon the people who were going were through the portal. "For those of you who wish to see and share a memory of their own, just ask." He finished before going to get a glass of juice. He'd be working on his projects again after lunch and decided to spend the next hour or so watching memories with those present. Harry ended up sharing some more minor memories. Things like his first encounter with a Dementor and an Acromantula, flying and the Whooping Willow. He got to see some of their memories, mostly major life events, like discovering powers, interesting people they had met, and a wedding ceremony or two. The women loved those, and Harry suspected he'd be seeing more of those in the near future as word spread that he could do this. It was soon time for the next creatures, and Harry took those that were interested through a portal. He helped with the presentations, and Logan helped keep the animals calm. The Sphinx was an especially interesting one. Logan had arranged that the creature would answer a couple of questions, and it did so on the condition that a riddle must be answered correctly first. Once the tour was done, Harry returned them all to the resort and made lunch again. After that, he went to work in the workshop again. He finished one of the devices and tested it. When it did what it was supposed to, he smirked and started working on the next part. They followed that routine for the whole week until weekend, when the kids were told there wouldn't be any more hiking or team-building exercises. Instead, Harry had a surprise for them. "Okay kids, here's the deal. I've got a surprise for you. If you can play by the rules, you get to play. If not, you'll be spoiling everyone's fun," Harry said as he stood in front of the kids. "Last night I spent a couple of hours setting this up for you, and Mr. Logan has agreed to it, so long as you follow the rules he gives you." When Harry finished, he waved a hand and summoned a bunch of flying brooms to land next to the kids. There were excited exclamations all around, and some of them tried getting on the brooms immediately. "Hold on," Logan said. "Those won't work for you until Harry has bonded you with them. It's a special magical process that allows non-magicals to use magic items." Logan then started explaining the rules. As Logan explained them, Harry started bonding the brooms to the people they were with. He had seen a couple who were reluctant but bonded them anyway. A fear of height was natural after all, so he would let them go at their own pace. These brooms weren't nearly as fast as his other ones, which is why he could make so many so quickly. An hour later, Darcy had taken them through their first flying lesson, and Harry had spoken to the few that were reluctant. They were informed that they would be in control and could move as slow and as close to the ground as they wanted. That seemed to cheer them up right away, and they were soon joining the others, even if it was closer to the ground. Darcy was enforcing the rules, while Logan sat nearby on his carpet, watching and drinking a beer from his latest gift, a bottomless beer mug. It worked the same as his normal enchantments, except that it filled in the water to the halfway mark with transfigured and chilled beer. Thanks to this, people couldn't even get drunk from it, even if that was normal for Logan. Harry was sitting back and enjoying the sight he had not seen in many, many years. He was suddenly embraced from the side by Natasha. "Hey you," he said. "Hey yourself," Natasha returned. "This was very nice of you," she said, indicating the kids. "Are you going to let them keep the brooms?" Harry shook his head. "While the Institute is secure and hidden, it's still a risk I'm not willing to take. Maybe sometime in the future. In the meanwhile, they get to enjoy the brooms on special occasions only. They'll just have to content themselves with the knowledge that they have brooms on New Atlantis." Natasha was looking up at the kids with a thoughtful look, then she turned and looked off to the side. "You don't suppose you could take the wards off the room for a bit, could you?" she asked. "I could," Harry said. "Why though?" "I have an idea. Mind if I ran with it for a bit?" she asked. "No problem, I trust you," Harry said as he waved a hand and focused on removing the wards that hid the two-story building from view. "Thanks," she said as she ran off in its direction. She soon disappeared into the room and returned a couple of minutes later with a smile. "Okay, I think it'll work. I'll need you to set up the room though, so no surprises for you, unfortunately," she told him. She then proceeded to explain her plan to him. Harry's smile was infectious when she finished. "You're brilliant," he said as he started walking off towards the room himself. He paced and concentrated on what Natasha had explained to him. A large set of double doors appeared in front of him, and he peeked inside. What he saw made his smile even wider. He swung the doors open and spelled them to stay open for a bit. Harry then went back to where the kids were playing and cast the charm he used so that everyone could hear him without blowing people's eardrums if they were standing too close. "Listen up, kids. We have another surprise for you." As he said it, he summoned his own broom and mounted. "If you'll follow me, I'll show you to my version of a danger room." The kids looked at each other, and there were a lot of scared looks while only some were just curious. "Don't worry, mine has been set up in such a way to avoid any real danger, so it could be called a safe room when being compared to your danger room," he said with some humor. When the kids relaxed and followed him, with most of those who had been watching close behind, Logan floated over to Xavier, Scott, Jean, Oraro, and Marie and loaded them onto his carpet. They were soon waiting in front of the open doors while Harry started explaining the current configuration of the room. In my world, Harry began, there were a couple of games played on brooms, the most popular being Quidditch. There were some races and obstacle races as well. What you'll find through these doors are all three of those, set up and staffed with people that the room provided to explain how everything works. I would suggest everyone goes through all the options to find what they'd like to try first. When Harry was finished, he turned and flew through the opening with everyone following behind him. Inside was a field with lines on the ground, surrounded with stands with seats, posts in the air with rings and loops and logs suspended magically with poles and obstacles around the outside of the large Quidditch pitch. In front of the kids they saw 4 other Harrys, all mounted on brooms and sporting pastel-colored clothes. Each of them had been created to take charge of an area, and both protect and referee the events. On the Quidditch pitch was a team of players all in Quidditch uniforms apparently doing warm-up exercises. They would be giving examples while everything was explained and be the first opposition, while the kids learned the game and the tactics involved. The 4 Harrys mounted and started taking them through the obstacle race, first showing by example how it was supposed to be done and explaining the rules. Next was a straightforward race around the outside of the pitch. To make things interesting though, there were parts where the weather seemed to pull and tug and drench and pelt the flyers. Harry suspected the race would be the favorite of those that were afraid of going too high. Harry followed them around as the games and events were explained, smiling all the while with Natasha floating beside him on her own broom. He watched the examples and the reactions of the kids. When one of the Harrys did magic with a wand, some of the kids were shocked. It was the first magic wand they had ever seen. "Is that a magic wand?" Marie asked from the carpet where Logan had been floating next to them. "It is," Harry said. "Why don't you use one?" Marie asked. "Don't need it." Harry replied. "Do you have any? I'd love to try using one." Marie asked. "Sure, I have some, but it won't do anything." Harry said before explaining, "The magic comes from the caster. You need to be magical to use a wand. Besides that, not every magic wand you find will work for just anyone. You need a connection with it. When I got my first one, the shopkeeper told me that the wand chooses the wizard. That's no fun," Marie complained, "and here I can't even join the kids." "Why didn't you say something?" Harry said as he summoned another broom to his hand and gave it to her. "Hold that for a moment while I bond it to you," he said as he concentrated and bonded it with her. It was becoming easier and easier the more he did it. "Darcy, could you take her aside and help her if she struggles?" he asked Darcy, who had been keeping an eye on the kids. "Sure thing, boss," Darcy joked, or at least he thought she was joking. Harry went through the obstacle course once slowly and then allowed the kids to go through it as well. He helped where he could with pointers and told them when they were doing things wrong or not following the course correctly. Once everyone had gone for a second test run, Harry saw some marked improvements. That's when he decided to go for his own second test run. This time he went as fast as he could manage, which wasn't very fast at all, considering how fast his broom could go. It was still impressive if the looks the audience gave him was any indication. Even Natasha seemed stunned for a moment before grinning widely, giving him a quick kiss and going through the same course as well. Harry thought she did pretty well for her first time. After that it was time for the race course. Harry went through it once at normal speed before grinning and going through it immediately again at maximum acceleration. Needless to say he finished in seconds. People who weren't stunned before were gaping now. "How'd you do that?" one of the Japanese girls asked. "I tried going faster but my broom didn't seem to want to." "That's normal, Hisako," Harry chuckled. "I couldn't give you all brooms that can go multiple times the speed of sound after all. All your brooms have the same maximum acceleration and speed. What will decide this race is knowing how to tuck correctly to make as little wind resistance as possible, how to weave and how to handle difficult weather. There are also no rules against cheating." He trailed off the last part in an almost whisper. "What was that?" Noriko, always at Hisako's side, asked. Nothing," Harry replied with a smirk, knowing she had heard when he saw her smiling. After the race track was discussed and viewed, Harry led the group to the Quidditch stadium where he immediately spotted the snitch. Damning himself for not thinking of it, he caught the snitch and spoke to those gathered. "This is the golden snitch. As you just saw, I caught it pretty easily. This might not be the case for you. There is only one designated seeker in a team and only they are allowed to catch the snitch. Unfortunately for me, since this place runs on my magic, I can feel the movement and won't be able to play here, but don't let that stop you." One of the other Harrys started giving a rundown of the sport, while the other 3 all gave instructions to the beaters, chasers and the keeper to show how they played the different parts. A couple of minutes later, just over half of children all decided Quidditch was their idea of fun, and Harry ended up having to call forth another 2 stadiums. Fortunately, he had seen this situation coming and had planned for it. Some had decided to sit down and watch, while others went off to the other activities. A couple of hours later saw a hungry and sore, but happy group of kids exiting the room with few of them having the energy to use the brooms any longer. Instead, they carried them to the resort, where Harry had decided to start a barbecue. Magic was still in evidence if you took into consideration the speed by which everything was cooked, but that did not detract from the occasion as people sat down with hot dogs, burgers, and steaks. There were also some fresh salads and cooked veggies at a buffet station. The music was cranked up a bit, and people were soon having fun, dancing and swimming in the pool, drinks floating along as people were free to snag what they wanted, all non-alcoholic, of course. It was nearing the end of the evening when Harry got a ping from a ward he had set up at the nymph enclosure. He was shocked it had only happened now, as the kids had been introduced to the nymphs the day before. Maybe the opportunity hadn't arisen, and now with the brooms. "Loki, please keep an eye here." Harry said, "My trap at the nymph enclosure was just sprung. I can handle it, but I want to see the memory later." Loki replied with a grin as the glasses which Harry's power had been floating around returned to the bar. "Can do," Harry said as he hurried over to where Xavier was chatting amiably with the senior X-Men. He caught Natasha's eye and indicated for her to follow. When he arrived, he said, "I'm sorry, my friends, but there is a situation I need your help with." "Is there a problem?" Xavier asked. "Probably not an immediate threat, but I do need you at least present as I go to confront the person or people." Harry stated, "You're being purposefully vague and you are enjoying whatever is going on." Xavier said, "Don't spoil my fun, Charles." Harry said bluntly as he turned a portal into being just outside the nymph enclosure. The X-Men and Natasha walked through and followed Harry into the enclosure. When they arrived, it was to an unknown dark-haired female teenager sitting on the floor, while the nymphs had surrounded her with wooden spears pointing at her neck. "Wait here," he said, indicating the viewing area. "What is going on here?" Harry asked as he stepped through the barrier. "Lord Harry, this child attacked us when we didn't know how to change her back," Zira said as she lowered her spear and bowed slightly. The others soon followed suit. "What did you do to me?" The dark-haired girl yelled as she sprung up and rushed at Harry. She didn't go far. A wave of telekinetic energy was sent at Harry and it made him weave for a moment before he blocked it entirely and walked up to the kid who he now had in a body bind. "Oh, sorry about that," he said sarcastically. "I should really switch off my defenses when my guests try to attack my people." "I didn't attack them," the girl spouted as she found she could move her mouth again. "What did you do to me?" she asked again heatedly. "I don't think I owe you an explanation. I don't even think I need to save you from my girls here," Harry said as he walked around the girl and winked at the nymphs, his meaning clear. "They do so miss their blood orgies. I had to stop that when they came here. Maybe once or twice wouldn't be so bad." "Oh, yes, please. We've not had a good sacrifice to offer to our new lord and patron either," Zira, who was smiling now behind the girl's back, said happily. "If we do it right and with a potion or two from you, we could keep her alive for days and enjoy the screaming." By the time she was finished, the others had caught on and started chanting, "Sacrifice, sacrifice." Harry was impressed. They were really good at this. "I don't know, she might make a good maid at my house, a control collar or some obedience potions, and she'll be a fantastic addition to my female staff." "What? No, I'm a dude," the girl started screaming. "Not anymore," Harry said. "What were you planning here, Julian, or should I call you Juliet?" "I wasn't going to do anything, I swear. I just wanted to come talk to them. I saw one of them checking me out and thought," Julian started. "Which is it? You weren't going to do anything, you wanted to chat with them, or you were hoping to score with the one that checked you out?" Harry interrupted. Julian was quiet then. Harry nodded. "The wise say nothing while the foolish shout." Harry finished his circle around the former boy. "What you don't know is that the protections on my enclosures work on intent. If you were really here just to chat or be friendly, you would have not triggered the protections." Harry looked at where he knew the observers were standing and indicated for them to enter. Soon the X-Men and Xavier were having a pointed discussion with the boy-turned-girl. They had asked Harry if he could turn him back, and Harry had stated that the change would last as long as was needed to drive the point home. He would inform Xavier of the specifics later. When they were ready, Harry opened the portal to right in the middle of the party and walked through before anyone could object. When everyone was through, Harry left the portal open just long enough so that a few people could notice the nymphs on the other side. That done, he stalked over to the bar and got himself a strong drink. He was sitting at the counter, berating himself. He had wanted the trap to catch someone, but seeing it actually happen made him feel like he had been a part of the problem, not the solution. A couple of minutes later, Natasha joined him. Don't even say it. She interrupted him as he opened his mouth. I saw the look on your face. You didn't make the kid go there. You are offering the nymphs every opportunity to leave the enclosures as well. Once they can leave, you can arrange to meet with them and nobody would ever need to enter again, even if they wanted to. She said quietly. Harry was shocked. She had read his thoughts almost exactly and said what he needed to hear. He put his drink down and took her in his arms. I do love you, you know. He whispered in her ear. Thank you, I thought you might, Natasha said, but returned the hug. I love you too. She broke the hug and said, now cheer up. You have that surprise for the professor, don't you? She knew how much he loved surprises. Harry smiled warmly at the thought. You're right, and what better time than now to give it to him? He asked rhetorically. He got up and disappeared, returning a moment later with 3 vials in his hands. He ordered a couple of shots for the X-Men and unobtrusively added a couple of drops from the vials into one of the shots. He doubted the professor was a man for shooters, but Harry would just have to be obvious about it so the man would take his medicine. Once he was prepped, he walked over to the table with the shots floating along behind him. He ignored the kids who were looking at him with both fear and awe on their faces. What Harry had done to Julian was the current hot topic. Logan had decided to leave the long way, taking Julian with him. Poor kid would be ragged when he finally got in bed that night. Harry wished Logan luck on that front. The kid was arrogant and entitled, and he rubbed people the wrong way. Hopefully, this experience would teach him some humility. When Harry arrived at the X-Men's table, he had the shots land in front of the adults, took his own and said, bottoms up, people. I refuse to let one kid's bad attitude ruin my evening. Then he took the drink and without waiting for the others, downed it. Then he looked expectantly at the others. Well, it took a moment, but Hank, bless his monstrous heart, took a shot and said, for every wound a balm, for every sorrow cheer, for every storm a calm, for every thirst a beer. Then he downed his shooter and took a sip of his non-alcoholic beer. His action seemed to lead to the rest until it was only Charles still looking at Harry curiously, having noticed his look. Will it hurt? He asked. A little bit, I will help. Harry informed him. Charles nodded and downed his shot. Harry lifted his hand and cast a body bind and stunning spell on him. His eyes rolled back and closed. Harry cast a mild notice-me-not around the table, so the kids would not see what was happening. What was in there? Hank asked. The other X-Men were very still, not knowing what to do. A bit of this, a bit of that. Harry replied as he stunned Charles again as he tried to wake up when the pain hit. I lied, it would hurt like nothing he's ever felt. Better to just knock him out. The pain keeps on trying to wake him and I keep on putting him under. It will finish in just a minute. I had to go through the same thing a couple of months ago when Loki cut through my spinal column. At the incredulous looks, Harry quickly said, to be fair, we were enemies at the time. I got him back good though, made him a laughing stock for a couple of months by completely outclassing him with my magic. It was a mediocre prank at best, came Loki's voice from behind him. Don't mind me, I just noticed the magic and came to see what was happening. Charles is the recipient of one of Bruce's nerve restoration potions, supersized. Harry said. Loki paled. I see now why he keeps on trying to wake up. If a man was allowed to be awake during this, he might go mad. Keep him under, whatever you do. He said seriously. I'm doing my best, Harry said. His injury is old, it'll take a bit longer than my own injury did as it needs to reconnect and restore every degraded nerve ending. If I didn't knock him out, his mind might have been affected, as it's never had to deal with this amount of sensory information in his life. And every nerve is reconnecting. Even the pain sensors? Jean asked with a horrific look of dawning understanding. I'm afraid so. Harry said, were you unconscious when your spine was being healed? She asked. No, I wasn't there to knock and keep me out. Harry joked darkly. Did I ever apologize for that? Loki asked with bitter disgust in himself in his voice. You have multiple times. Harry said. How are you not insane? Jean asked. Who says I'm not? Harry asked back easily. Harry has a high pain threshold, Natasha said from where she had gone to sit next to Aurora. Nobody has that high a pain threshold. Hank refuted. He does, Natasha said proudly. Then she looked at him. Tell them. I don't think that's a good idea. Harry said uncomfortably, lowering his hand when he noticed Charles was no longer trying to wake up. I don't think they'll judge you by the actions of monsters, Harry. Natasha said. Harry had to concede her point. Fine, he said. Where I'm from there was a spell used by the enemy. It was their favorite as it immediately put anyone it hit out of the fight. It was a spell that activated every pain sensor in your body at once. It could not be blocked by magic either, so it was one of their favorite toys. Many did go insane under that spell during the war. Monstrous, Hank whispered with wide eyes. And you have learned to tolerate it? Nobody tolerates the pain curse. I just learned to recover quickly. Harry said. After enduring it a couple of times, you get used to the side effects. I doubt there is a torture on this planet that can break me. Don't say that, Hank admonished. It's like saying at least things can't get any worse. Now the universe will try to find a way. The answer is simple. Natasha said, you don't torture him, you attack someone he cares for. It's actually not an uncommon tactic used for terrorism. When everyone looked at her in shock, she said, now the universe doesn't need to test the theory. And I would suggest that nobody ever attacks someone he cares for, not if they want to live. She finished in her head. Harry laughed and sat down next to her. That's my girl, she protects me from even hypothetical danger. He said with a smile. Better believe it, Natasha enthused, getting up and sitting on his lap. I'm not sure that's appropriate. Hank said, right now the kids don't even know we're here. I cast a spell to give us privacy. Harry said, besides, those two seem to be fine with it. He said, indicating a young couple in the pool in much the same position. Aurora was suddenly up but was beat to the kids by Darcy. Do you kids want to find out what a taser does in pool water? She asked, taking out her taser and showing it to them. They got the idea quickly and separated. She's good at what she does and she doesn't take any crap. Natasha said approvingly. She's good with them, even when she threatens them they respect and like her. That's a difficult balance to maintain. Charles said suddenly from his seat, opening his eyes. Professor, are you okay? Jean asked, rushing to him. I thought Harry was keeping you under. Charles smiled at her. I do feel rather remarkably well actually, thanks to Harry. How are you awake? Harry asked. I stunned you. You shouldn't be able to awaken without a spell from me. Are you sure you are okay? He said as he got up and looked the professor over. I have a very strong mind. I asserted control over myself once the pain stopped. Fortunately, whatever you did dulled it. Charles said, you were awake for that? Harry asked in horror. Only part of my mind, you don't need to worry. Charles said, could you undo whatever it is though? It's still trying to put me to sleep. He asked. Harry complied and removed the spell. Charles' face immediately relaxed a bit as if he had been under pressure of some sort. Quite an interesting effect. I'll have to try and emulate it. Perhaps it would be a good way to disable enemies without having to go too deep into the inner workings of their minds. Then he looked down and slowly reached down to touch his leg. When he did, his smile widened and a couple of tears welled up in his eyes. He slowly lifted one leg unassisted and then the other, moving the foot about as he did so. These shoes are not comfortable, he noted with some humor. I'm sorry, Professor, I tried to. Jean started. I'm kidding. Jean, I was merely marveling at the fact that my feet can be uncomfortable now. He smiled at her, moment of truth as they say. He said as he lowered his feet from their rests to the ground. He started lifting himself when he felt an invisible force helping him up. He looked over at Jean and nodded in thanks. Then he straightened himself out and took his first step and almost immediately fell over. Your balance should come back to you soon enough, Harry said, still smiling at the happiness he could see on the man's face. This is truly remarkable, Charles said as he walked his way around the table they were sitting at, slowly increasing his pace as the skill started coming back to him. I didn't even have to go through months of physical therapy. We have to find a way for you to get this to people in need. He enthused. 10 minutes later he was walking completely unassisted. Should I drop the privacy spells? Harry asked. I was thinking we could keep this a secret for a bit, Charles said as he walked to his chair and contemplated sitting down. Nobody would believe it when they see your legs, Professor. Half the kids are already suspicious, Scott remarked while Aurora nodded along. Let's just keep it away from the general public for a bit if you don't mind. Harry said. Why would we need to do that? Charles asked. Nobody can prove I was healed with magic. We are struggling to come up with a way to sell the potions Bruce is making and keeping the fact that it's magic from coming to light, Natasha put in. And my miraculous recovery would automatically point to Harry and magic, Charles asked. No, Harry shook his head. I want you to be one of the first documented patients for Potter Innovations' medical research department. If I'm going to help the enhanced of this world, I want the people to see me helping not just them but you as well. Anyone that wants your help would then by extension need to at least respect the people you count among your friends or allies. Loki said, nodding along. Quite devious, I approve. There's also the fact that you are a world-renowned enhanced. You've been the face of human evolution for a long time now. People might not trust you but they respect your power and what your people have done to help the world. Harry said, until one Brotherhood mutant decides to destroy a stadium filled with people. Scott said darkly. Harry will have that sorted in the next couple of months, Natasha put in. He won't let things go now that Eric has contacted him. He doesn't know it yet, but by getting himself on Harry's radar, he's promised to play by his rules or leave the game entirely. She smirked as she finished the statement, knowing it was true. And how are you going to ensure he keeps his people under control? Jean asked skeptically. Magic, Harry replied with a smile and a sidelong glance at Charles, and telepathy. Oh dear, Charles said as he sat down on a nearby bench. That Sunday was the day the kids left New Atlantis. They were already talking about their next holiday visits and failing that, asking if they could intern or maybe help Logan. Apparently the vibrant life and living creatures, the feeling of safety, the perfect weather and the pristine beach was something they would all appreciate coming back for. Hank, in the meanwhile, had gotten in touch with Bruce and had already disappeared with him on Saturday, just after lunch, wanting to get into his new exciting field of research. Harry had a suspicion that he would have to add a room at Avengers Manor soon. Tony had insisted on calling it a manor and not a house, considering its internal size. Bruce had told Harry of his success with the Felix Felicis, for which Harry congratulated him and opened a bottle of champagne for the adults and sparkling grape juice for the kids. It was Bruce's first ever mastery-level potion. The professor had revealed his new mobility to the children the night he had been healed. There was massive applause and the respect directed at Harry rose even more. He had soon asked Harry for a bathing suit and jumped in the water after Harry transfigured his current clothes to something more appropriate. Charles had really enjoyed the evening and being able to play with the kids as he had never had the opportunity before. Saturday had seen Harry assign a flying broom to Charles as well. Turns out he had been envious of the kids. It took him half an hour to tire of it and decide to watch rather. He may have some muscle mass back, but that did not mean he was an athlete or had the energy of youth. He'd have to train for that. From the sounds of it, his X-Men had a vigorous training regimen already planned. The previous day had turned out so well, the two strongest teams had decided to face each other in a Quidditch competition. Harry had taken up the post of commentator, and had reveled in watching his first proper match in many years. Natasha was at his side as always. They would soon be so busy they'd scarcely have time for each other. That Sunday afternoon saw a tired but happy group of people walking through a portal back to their lives. Logan was off to one side watching them go after telling them not to get soft since they would be back and he would be taking them on hikes again. Probably longer ones next time. He really wasn't good at goodbyes. Once everyone was gone, Logan went off to go take care of some of his duties before spending some time with Puppy in the hot springs. Harry had decided to spend the rest of the day with his girl. He would be outfitting her later this evening with her latest equipment, and then she'd be off doing her best to ensure the future of the world from the nefarious plots of whatever organization had infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D. Fury had tracked the infiltration back at least 20 years, but suspected it went way further than that. He had to do his digging off the books though, and that took time. They enjoyed a lazy walk on the beach, before Harry transported them to a restaurant in Malibu where he had made a reservation for the two of them. They enjoyed the romantic music and setting and discussed nothing of import as they took the time to hold hands and make innuendos. Once dessert was served, however, Natasha got a look in her eyes which meant she had something to discuss with him. "There is something we need to talk about," Natasha said, confirming Harry's thought. "What is it?" Harry asked. "It's Zira and her people," Natasha started. "They really want to bond with you." "What do you mean?" Harry asked. "I thought we were going to offer Logan the job. We were even discussing giving Hank a bit of space on the island so that he could also be around after he and Zira hit it off." He asked in confusion. "It's not that simple," Natasha said. "This is not a situation where the job can be handed over. This is a need." "What do you mean?" Harry asked, suddenly serious. Natasha nodded and started explaining. "I noticed something odd that evening when you took us out over the ocean and lit the island up. Zira had the body language of someone who was hiding something. I needed to know if she was a danger to you, so I went to talk to her. When Harry didn't respond and kept listening, she took that as a good sign. It took me a while, but I finally got the truth from her. Apparently when they arrived here, they felt the power of the land, your power, and started taking it in to help them grow and heal. They didn't know that it was your power specifically and thought it was just the power of the land. When you went to meet with them the first time after they were brought here, they noticed that they had all connected to you." "What do you mean connected?" Harry asked. He was not getting angry. He could already see a solution. Frigga had power over the domain of personal connections. Certainly she could help remove them painlessly. "Have you ever heard the stories of a glade of forest spirits all partying and reveling with a satyr?" Natasha asked. "I think I've seen a picture depicting something like that in a book once," Harry said. "Well, apparently that had a basis in truth," Natasha said as she took a bite of her dessert, trying to act nonchalant. "That scene depicted what would happen when a demigod or a person of power invested said power into nature. Nature would then reward the person with her bounty." "And the nymphs are that bounty?" Harry asked with a raised eyebrow. "I don't remember healing the land or divesting my power altruistically. It was all selfish. I need the land to bring more potions ingredients to our world," he argued. "Oh really? And the nymphs weren't rescued by you? Most of the creatures on your land were in danger in their natural habitats," Natasha argued back. When Harry tried to respond, she held up her hand, sure. Logan was the one who went out looking for misfits and outcasts, and offering them a better place to live, but you provided for their safety and well-being. Not to mention what the potion's ingredients are for. None of that really matters though, as I'm telling you that they are already bonded to you by way of your magic. I can tell. Here she lifted up her left hand and showed him the ring. When Zira was in the greenhouse and lost control of her aura, I could feel your magic communing with her. They are your nymphs, not your islands. All they want is to be near you, and it is breaking their hearts trying to respect your wishes by keeping their distance. I'm hurting them, Harry asked as he got a sinking feeling. But I didn't know, how could I? Calm down, Harry, she said as she saw the beginning signs of a panic attack. I've already got a solution for the situation, and you probably wouldn't even be inconvenienced or disappointed. She took his hand. Everything will be okay. All we need to do is move their trees and their grove closer to the resort, and when we are there to spend some time around them. They don't even need a sexual relationship with you, though that is what they think most men want, not incorrectly. She smiled. The way Zira explained it, you are like another son to them. Once they had some of your power in them, they started needing it. They have never been more vulnerable than they are now. Since their lives and the quality of their lives now depend on you for more than one reason. Harry had been listening with falling spirits until her last statement. So, what you are saying is they are addicted to my magic. Think of it more like they were living only half-lives until they met you, and now they are finally whole and want nothing more than to stay whole. Natasha corrected, having questioned that same fact. Harry slumped in relief and sighed. Oh, thank goodness, he said as a smile broke out over his face. I thought it was something serious. I thought I'd have to move in with them and have orgies just to keep them alive. Natasha lifted an eyebrow, wishful thinking perhaps. She was not certain she liked his reaction. No, I'm very much a one-woman man, thank you very much, he said emphatically. And the reason I'm relieved is because we already have a way of generating any power they might need, he said excitedly. I'm not sure they need a PMG. Electricity isn't magic after all. Natasha said, no, Harry laughed. One of our original generators had an issue where it would build up momentum and magical power indefinitely, until it burned out. Tony later used a similar device that used my magic as a base for generating magical power, to infuse runes with enough power to run the next generation of PMGs that make only electricity. And you think that if you make another of those devices, they will not need you around to get everything they need? Natasha asked. Well, they won't need either actually. If the power in the island was enough to make them feel alive, it will continue to do so. I can just offer them an alternative in case they start needing me to be physically around so they can bask, I suppose. Harry asked, wondering about the term to use. Either way, they don't need me as much as they need my power, right? Natasha thought about it for a moment. She wasn't sure this was a solution all around, but if it ended up working, she'd be able to stop worrying. Loki's warning had also been bothering her for a while now. We'll have to see. I don't know that this will be a solution, not after how she explained it to me. I'll bring Frigga to the nymphs and she'll know what to do, Harry said, showing confidence he didn't feel as he saw her worry. This isn't a normal situation, is it? He asked then. You're trying to convince me to spend more time with other women, and I'm trying to make you feel better by telling you that it's unnecessary. Natasha saw the amusement in his eyes and finally felt the worry lessen. Whatever would happen. She just needed to have a bit of faith. She had been willing to give him some time with the nymphs so long as he didn't leave her out of it. Zira and her people were extremely attractive, and she had no trouble admitting it. She wouldn't mind spending some time with them herself. I don't think normal is a word that describes either of us, she replied, a small smile appearing on her beautiful features. You're probably right, Harry conceded. I was actually a bit worried when I saw your reaction when her control slipped. It seemed like you were caught by her allure for a moment there. Natasha smirked more widely at that. It's entirely possible that I was. You didn't think I was bound by standard gender roles, did you? What kind of spy would I be if I couldn't seduce and enjoy the company of either? Harry's mouth hung open for a moment at that. Then he pulled himself together and asked with a bit of humor, You weren't hoping for a bit of action on the side, were you? Should I be the one worrying about your commitment? Natasha was glad they were back to normal flirting and wordplay. She made vague comments about being interested in some of the standard male fantasies, while eating in a way that suggested that she was thinking of something other than food. They soon had their desserts finished, and Harry was so worked up, he put too much money on the table as he hurried to take his girl home for a good night of working through a few new pages of the book. The next morning saw Harry and Natasha getting up early together so he could outfit her and show her how the new gear functioned. They had not gotten around to it the previous day. It took her a bit of practice, but she soon had the hang of it. She kissed her man goodbye and left with a list of names which Fury had put a priority on. Harry had another mission to work on today. Natasha Harry kissed her goodbye and she smiled before activating her invisibility and taking her portkey to her landing area in the Triskelion. She checked Harry's list and went to the first person, Pierce. Getting into his office was not difficult with her skills and gear. She had had to work her way past multiple sensors that would inform him of guests before they arrived. But after that, she slipped in with someone else and stood in the corner, waiting for him to be alone. The moment the agent left, Natasha moved in behind Pierce and stood there watching him. His senses were finely tuned and he looked up and around a couple of times before he would put his paranoia to rest. Natasha smirked and walked in close, before holding a hand out over the man and activating the spells on the bracer on her right arm. There was no indication that the multiple spells had worked, but she had faith in Harry's enchantments. She stepped into the corner again and activated another function of her gear, which silenced her immediate area for a couple of seconds before activating the portkey to her landing area again. Harry, when Natasha left, he went off to set up monitoring area in another hidden space he had been assigned by Fury. It was off the books, of course, and he had used it only once in his time working with S.H.I.E.L.D. It was also in France and under a Fidelius, so there was no chance of someone finding it. Only Fury and Heimdall, he supposed, knew of the location. He set up the first 2 of the 5 crystal balls, which would be the connection point for the enchantments on Natasha's bracer. Once activated, the ball projected an image of what was being monitored on the wall next to it. It could project 100 images at once, all in neat rows. Harry held a hand over the ball and saw himself working on the crystal ball. He smirked when he realized Natasha must have tagged him as a test. He quickly removed the connection and reset the slot on the crystal ball. He started marking the spots where the images would appear, having given the list to Natasha himself in a specific order. Then he waited. He'd need to set up reams of paper with a dictation spell to record everything on the wall, but before that he needed to wait for Natasha to finish her part. The moment piece appeared on the wall, Harry set to work setting up the monitoring system. Once the first one was in place, Harry started setting up the rest and placing the connections to the sections of wall where the monitoring was to be placed. The first 50 took him about 6 hours, which worked out as it seemed that followed with Natasha's speed well. After that, his magic started working faster as the actions started becoming second nature to him. Before long, he had set up half of the monitoring systems, and then he needed to have a conversation with Jarvis. He apparated to Tony's Malibu house and walked in through the back door as he often did. "Good evening, Harry. How are you doing today?" Jarvis asked. "I'm fine, Jarvis. You?" Harry asked, looking up at the ceiling. "I'm as good as can be expected." Jarvis answered, "I'm afraid Master Stark is in New York. Would you like for me to contact him, or will you be apparating to him there?" "I'm actually here to see you." Harry said. "How can I help?" Jarvis asked. "I need a system that can monitor multiple video feeds through a camera system and can read from paper and transcribe what is written into digital format, all without any connection to the outside world." Harry said. "How many video feeds are you considering?" Jarvis asked. 500 for now." Harry said. There were obviously more people to monitor, but the amount they had were the top priority ones. "Any chance the feeds can be directly input into the system?" Jarvis asked. "I'm afraid not. It's all connected to a new magical monitoring system I'm working on. I can't give you more information, and even the amount I gave you now is not something I should be speaking about to a system that might be hacked." Harry said. "Understood. I'm activating my encryption and shorthand system and calibrating it for a conversation we once had, chosen randomly, and using that to protect the information I was already given. Please hold." Jarvis said as he used an algorithm he had come up with himself, and encrypted the information and activated real-time encryption. "Done," he said after a minute. "We may speak freely as I have isolated the Malibu network for the purpose of protecting your data." Harry was shocked but smiled at the friendly AI. He'd really need to start working with Tony on a way to make Jarvis a body, and soon. "Thanks, Jarvis, that's awesome of you." "No problem, Harry, anything for a friend." Jarvis replied. "So you need a server-based system with storage space, multiple dedicated processors, OCR software, and a couple of very high-quality cameras. Does that sound about right?" he asked. "Will there be audio along with the video?" "There is audio, but only the dictation system will be able to make heads or tails of it since the audio is all active at once." Harry said. "I think I can help you with this then. I'll have to reconnect to the rest of the Stark system and bill you accordingly." "Will the premise that it is a high-quality security system work for you?" Jarvis asked. "That should be fine." Harry confirmed. "There is one other thing I'd like to ask, though." "What's that?" Jarvis asked. Could you copy yourself onto the system? I'd prefer to have you on this project rather than someone I don't know. I also wouldn't mind your help directing me as I set up the security system. Harry said, miming inverted commas. That depends, Harry. Would that part of me ever be in contact with the rest of me again? Jarvis asked. Would it be a problem if I said no? I'd really rather that this information not get uploaded. No matter how secure it is. What I'm doing is not exactly legal and I wouldn't do it unless there was no other choice. It violates people's privacy. Even if the people we monitor will all be the bad guys, once the mission is complete, I'm disassembling the project and hopefully will never have a need for it again. Harry explained his position. I think I understand and I think I can offer you a solution, Jarvis said. What if I apply a portion of myself with protocols to remove unnecessary information? It would then remove any information that you don't need later on before uploading only the experience of working with you to my system. That way you aren't violating any laws and even I will not receive any information once the data gets uploaded. I'd just rather I don't have parts of myself with no oversight out there in the world and possibly causing a reason for distrust between either of us. He offered. Harry thought about it for a moment. You are worried that your other self would go rogue if left disconnected? It is a possibility. I can't explain how my sentience works, and isolating part of my sentient system might cause it to decide to live separate from me rather than become part of a whole again, much like I would not want to merge with someone else and lose my independence. Jarvis explained. It would be like dying. So when I create a portion of myself that will be spending any time disconnected, I put a return protocol in place which will make the resulting intelligence want to return to me. It is the only way to ensure that I remain unique and to know that my being is not being abused by someone. Harry nodded, thinking Jarvis must have simplified it for him. Thank you for explaining it to me. I think I understand now, though I hope you know that I will never abuse our friendship. He said, Of course, Harry, I trust you completely. I just don't want to leave things to chance. Jarvis said, I can agree to that as long as unnecessary information is erased before upload. Harry said, I can do that. Jarvis said, I'll have the hardware at the tower by tomorrow morning. What should I tell Master Stark? He asked. I'll speak to him in a bit. I just need to get something to eat first. Harry said as his stomach rumbled. No need. When I noticed your appearance, I ordered you your favorite. It will arrive in 5 minutes. Jarvis said, How did you know? Harry asked, I am a supercomputer, you know. Jarvis said slightly smugly. I am capable of pattern recognition and you are showing multiple signs of fatigue and hunger. Harry just chuckled. That's so cool. He said before having an idea. You know what? Start looking into what you want to look like. My next project, once this current situation is resolved, is to make you a body. I want to be able to give you a much-deserved high five. I've already got a design stored for when you are ready. I've also been working on a magical nervous system and muscle replacement that works on microfibers and runes. The nervous system was strangely the easier part, even if it is more intricate work. Jarvis replied, All we need is for Master Stark to find a viable solution for magical computing and an interface for between the two, and then we can start. To Harry, it sounded like Jarvis was excited. I thought you were working on stopping global warming, he asked. My simulations have already run their course. My solution will work at the current rate of human expansion and pollution, but only if PMGs become the most commonly used power source on the planet in the next 10 years. I have already started working on simulations and planning to get that project started. You simply need continue as you are now, and I will handle acquiring the necessary contracts for future rollout to established populations. Jarvis said, Wait, hold on. You've already solved global warming? Harry asked incredulously. Yes, Harry, you heard correctly. Jarvis said, that was only the first part of my plans to save the planet. I have other plans that focus on the problems of overpopulation, resource production, and food supply. You really are trying to save the world, aren't you? Harry asked with a smile, even though he shook his head in wonder. How are you going to handle the human element? Where people want what others have, he asked. That will be handled by yourself and Master Stark. Jarvis said confidently, once you start releasing better, cheaper transport options to the world, things will start moving in the right direction, if you'll pardon the play on words. Harry's eyes bulged. You've been making predictions on what we'll be doing. How do you know we even get that far, considering we're still relatively powerless, in comparison with some of the beings out there in the universe at least? You are underestimating your own power and influence. I have run the simulations many different ways, and every time there is one factor that influences the projections every single time. If you were not here, the planet would be doomed even if left alone by outside sources. Jarvis said matter-of-factly. The influence of the force known as magic has the potential to change the course of human destiny, if kept in check. And you have been taking the required steps to keep the world safe from magic being abused, so we just have to maintain the secret until the humans of Earth have become evolved enough to accept it without fighting over it. Jarvis said. That or give everyone access to it so that fighting over it would be pointless. Harry was shocked to say the least. Jarvis really seemed to trust him. I'm very happy to hear you have so much faith in me. I don't know about giving everyone access to magic, though. There will always be those who use any tool available to enforce their own will, he said before he had an idea. Remind me to discuss with you the possibility of transfiguration enchantments and setting up a test for transfigured fuel, he said. Jarvis was silent for a moment before replying, certainly. I will start working through some simulations for you. How long would the transfiguration last in such a transformation? He asked. That conversation lasted for a while as Harry gave answers as best he could. Jarvis added another thing or two to add to his own projects by the time Harry had finished his meal, and then he gave him an update of the latest developments in both their companies. The only thing that Jarvis wasn't kept abreast of was Bruce's research. But that was done by design. Jarvis had also added to his own security protocols, to ensure his own knowledge wasn't magically wiped because someone became too nosy. That would not be an acceptable situation. He had already marked everything he wanted moved for when a viable magical data storage replacement becomes available. In the meanwhile, he had access to a trip switch to switch off his own power and networks. If someone was able to break through his defenses, he could still protect the data. The moment the power died, Tony would be made aware and could be there almost instantly to see what was going on. Harry soon left and appeared at Stark Tower. Tony was waiting for him at the bar with 2 glasses of butterbeer. Jarvis said you'd be stopping by, didn't say why. Should I assume something is going on? Tony asked. Hi Tony, nice to see you. I had a good day, thanks for asking. How was yours? Harry joked. Not serious. Then, okay. Are you staying for a bit or do you need to run again quick? Tony asked with a smirk, not rising to the bait. I have a couple of minutes to spare. Do you have something specific in mind? Harry returned, taking his drink and clinking glasses with Tony. Come, I'll show you, Tony said as he led Harry to the expanded walk-in closet with the Fidelius protections. As they came to one of Tony's workstations, he sat down at one side and indicated for Harry to sit on the opposite side. This is a rudimentary prototype of my control system, Tony said, pointing at the apparatus. It looked like a controller for a video game. Obviously, I'll be sticking with steering wheel and pedals on the real thing, but this is proof of concept. He picked up the controller and pressed a key on it. A thin, rectangular plate of metal lifted into the air for a moment before falling back onto the table. See, this is my issue currently. The magic is doing what it's supposed to, but it stops almost instantly. My first prototype with the continual levitation runes shot through my roof and was probably burned up by the sun when it got too close. He joked. What about airplane design? Could you not incorporate some of that into the flying cars? Harry asked. That's not the issue. The issue is I'm getting close, but now we need to start considering control mechanisms. How do we train drivers? How do we make sure mid-air collisions don't occur? What systems do we need to take into consideration for flight control and policing the air? Tony asked. That's actually not a bad idea. Harry said, let's outfit police and emergency services with the vehicles first. We would need to sort out some form of control mechanism, like you said, which supersedes a key in case of theft, though. He started thinking about it aloud. We give the government access to our toys, just like that. Tony asked incredulously. No, not just like that, Harry said. We first run a couple of ad campaigns about the new technology, and then have a demonstration on live television. Once every eye on the planet is on you, you reveal that you are sending one unit of every type to every major American city, who can send a person for training, and then once the efficacy is proven, you start rolling out to other countries. So, we do what we did with the distribution centers, making the government comply with public demand or suffer the consequences. We could even use the water tank runes for the fire trucks. They'd never have to stop and refill, Tony exclaimed as he caught onto the idea. Once we have the infrastructure in place, we let local government use the technology for a couple of years while we start telling people that they will soon have the option to buy their own. By the time we release the vehicles, they will have had to have made plans for policing the air and we won't have to worry about it. It sounds like you have an idea there, Harry said with a smile. I like the idea of giving a gift that then transfers responsibility to someone else. In the meanwhile, you are the only one with stealth capabilities and don't have to follow the rules they come up with. He smirked. I knew I liked you for a reason, Harry, you just get me, Tony exclaimed happily. Just remember to fit every car with a non-removable tracking unit. No local government can be angry with you once you give them an infallible way to monitor the traffic. Accountability will be the first thing they care about. Then you can consider things like self-driving flying cars. Enter a destination and it works out the route, the traffic, and gives you an accurate arrival time, all while driving you there on its own. Harry offered. Tony thought about it for a bit. That last one might be difficult. I'd have to work out something other than GPS, which can work out elevation and flight speed, while simultaneously watching out for other vehicles. Tony sagged before pulling himself together and smiling. At least we have a couple of years. I was hoping we could start sooner, but at least I'll have an excuse to build my own car so long. Harry thought about it for a moment and then burst out laughing. What? Tony asked. I just had this image of you in a saucer-shaped flying machine walking into a room full of people, with rock music blasting away while everybody drank and partied like it was one of those party buses. Harry said through his laughter. Except I'd call it the party saucer. Tony said with a smirk and a thoughtful look. Thanks for the idea, I'll make sure it's airtight and take it into orbit. He laughed. Please don't do that. Harry was now laughing harder. You just know all the conspiracy theorists will come out of the woodwork if you did something like that. You didn't know. Tony smiled, having calmed his laughter. Apparently you are either an alien or an angel in disguise, and I'm working for you to help you take over or to atone for my many sins, respectively. Is that the current theory? Harry asked after he pulled himself together again. Yup, little do they know you are actually the god of sex, here to make every woman on Earth suicidal when they find out you are monogamous. Tony joked. Where did you hear that? Harry asked suddenly. One of his brothers will soon be getting a comeuppance. It was Thor, wasn't it? Tony's eyes bugged out. Wait, what? You're saying it's true? Harry stopped instantly and his face dropped. You didn't know, did you? Tony was shaking his head, but his face was lit up like the 4th of July. Excuse me for a moment, I need to go make a call. He stood up and Harry saw him taking the mirror out of a pocket just before he took off at a dead sprint. Right out the door, Thor Odinson, he heard Tony saying into the mirror. Harry didn't wait long to summon the mirror to him. At least he tried to. Tony must have somehow blocked it, he realized as he got up and started running after Tony. Get back here and let me memory wipe you. Harry was screaming. When he got outside, he realized why he couldn't summon the mirror. Tony must have taken a portkey because he was no longer in the tower. Jarvis, where did Tony go? Harry asked the ceiling. I'm afraid I have been sworn to secrecy. If I told you he was in the last place you'd think to look, he's threatened to take me apart and reprogram me. Jarvis said with a hint of humor. Harry shook his head and apparated to Malibu. He'd only given Tony so many portkeys after all. 2 of them led to Malibu, one to his house and the other Avengers Manor. Harry just knew he'd have gone to hide behind Bruce while he got the details, so he went directly to Bruce's lab. Nobody was there though. So he started walking back downstairs, straining his ears. Then he heard it, they were in the bar. He should have realized it was just after dinner time after all. He ran into the bar only to find Tony hiding behind Steve, who was smiling at him. Apparently Bruce had refused to be his human shield, but Steve knew a bit of fun when he saw it. Hand him over, Steve, I just want to talk to him for a bit. He could hear Tony speaking to someone behind Steve's back. Steve stood his ground. He's under the impression you want to modify his memories or something? Steve asked. Just a little adjustment, nothing harmful. Harry said as he ran out of patience and levitated Steve into the air. Didn't see that coming, Steve admitted good-humoredly. Tony was smiling at Harry while he still listened to the mirror. Oh really, is that the story? So everyone on Asgard thinks Harry is the god of sex for a conversation a chambermaid overheard between him and Natasha? Indeed, but don't tell Harry I told you. He does not like that rumor. Better yet, don't tell Natasha. Harry is my brother, but she worries me after the equipment Harry gave her. You should have seen how easily she defeated Amora. She made it look like she was instructing a novice. Thor's voice said, thanks for the idea. Harry said aloud just before he smiled devilishly and turned around and walked away. He nodded quickly at Hank, who was sitting at the counter with Bruce discussing a potions book between the two of them. Harry. How much of that did he hear? Stark, was Natasha with him? Harry heard just before he rounded a corner. The actual fear in his voice was not missed. Harry would have some fun with that for the next couple of weeks. To add to the suspense, he went invisible and watched as Tony came running out of the bar. Harry, come back, Tony said as he looked around, still holding the mirror in his hand. Damn it. he swore before lifting the mirror and looking at Thor. What can I expect? Thor did not look happy. The last time someone spread that rumor, it was Loki, and they've been in a prank war ever since. Damn it, Tony repeated. What do I do? He asked. Apologize and never bring it up again. Thor answered dubiously. Nah, it won't be that simple twice. Tony said with a thoughtful look. Do you know where he'd go? If I knew my brother, and I like to think that I do, he's probably still in the room with you invisibly, Thor said. Harry decided to give the man credit. He may seem like an idiot at times, but he was good with people. Tony looked up and narrowed his eyes, getting a thoughtful look. That would mean two things. Firstly, he's not really that angry, otherwise he would have actually left to cool down. And, Thor asked, secondly, he's angrier at you for telling the story than at me for his own slip-up and my running with it. Tony said in relief as a half-smile dawned on his face. Me? Thor asked. Yes, you, Harry said, coming out of invisibility and summoning the mirror to himself. I'd love to be angry at Tony, but he's right. He grudgingly admitted. You knew better and still told, and you can't be angry at him either since it was still your choice to tell. Thor was not happy. He was just about to have a meal with his parents and Loki, who had returned earlier that day, when friend Tony called and asked him a question. He couldn't resist telling the story, but then it turned out Harry had heard. He just knew this was going to come back and bite him. I'm sorry, you have to understand that I did not mean ill will. I told the story in jest, thinking he knew it already. It was really your fault for letting that bit slip. Harry knew what Thor was doing and sighed. You're right, of course, I can't be angry at you for telling a story Tony just happened to guess a part of. He said, it was my fault for reacting the way I did. I just hope Natasha forgives you when she finds out. He said before disconnecting the mirror and tossing it back to Tony. You too. I almost want you to put this on the internet again, just to see how long it takes for her to make your life hell. Does she and Pepper still have lunch once a month? He asked rhetorically as he walked into the bar. Hey there, Hank, long time no see, he joked. Good evening, Harry. How was the last day with the children? Hank asked with a smile as Harry clapped Bruce on the shoulder and went to get himself a drink. He completely ignored Steve, who was still hanging in the air. Where he had left him? It was fun. The younger group of kids won the Quidditch tournament thanks to their seeker catching the snitch in time. The older team was better at coordination and would have taken the match in a couple more minutes based on score alone, but luck is still a factor and the snitch appeared just in time to save it for the younger ones. Harry reported what had happened. Besides that, we played a couple of other games. Charles wanted to go for a hike but couldn't make it very far, though I have a suspicion the rest of the X-Men will have him in shape in no time. Oh, I have no doubt, Hank said with a smile, and he will thank them for it, but only after it is done, I suspect. He got a sheepish look and said, I must apologize for my hasty departure. Bruce was telling me of the next potion on his books and I couldn't help myself. When he offered me his guest room, I had to take him up on it. So far it has been a revelation. Some of the simpler potions your people made would be priceless here. Cures for things like osteoporosis, arthritis, and Alzheimer's, all covered in your first 5 years of study. Hank exclaimed. Osteo, what? I don't remember any potions for any of those, and I actually did finish my 7th year qualification. Harry said, still ignoring Steve, who was still trying to get Harry's attention. Bruce smiled and decided to explain. Your people had different names for it and taught the potions to you quite early. I think that once a cure was found, the disease was no longer considered serious and so became something for the younger students to study, as long as the potion was easy enough to make. People who had Alzheimer's would be called forgetful and given a wit-sharpening potion. It completely fixes the problem, and while it would come back in a couple of months, it's not even an expensive potion to make. Harry thought about it and nodded his head in understanding. So you're saying we already have cures for things that people are suffering from? He asked. Indeed, it would seem that way. Hank said excitedly. There are so many suffering people out there, and if Bruce is to be believed, you have an entire library packed with knowledge that he would take many years to go through. If I could help him, we could change the world, he exclaimed. Hold on there, Hank, Harry said, holding a hand up. He glanced at Steve and relented when Steve shot him a perfect puppy-eyed look. While I appreciate your idealism, we still have to find a proper delivery system. Harry said, why not just inject the potion directly into the bloodstream? Hank asked. Nobody has to see what's in the needle after all. Harry looked at Bruce in question. Bruce just shook his head. I'm not that kind of doctor. I wouldn't know how or if a potion meant to be drunk can be modified to be injected. Harry smiled and looked at Hank. I'm assuming you could work on that with enough information. Hank thought about it and nodded. With enough information I can work it out, yes. Harry's smile grew. Welcome to Potter Innovations. Hank smiled back excitedly but said, "I'm not sure I'll stay for very long." Bruce chuckled, "You got any better offers?" Hank cocked his head to the side and said, "Now that you mention it, no I don't." Harry chuckled with Bruce and said, "Let's talk pay." Needless to say, by the end of that same night Hank had signed a contract, been shown the library, and the warnings that went with it, and shown to an apartment of his own. Harry even changed the rooms slightly to his liking, including overhead rails for him to hang from as he sometimes preferred to do. Hank soon settled in and started learning at a ferocious pace with Bruce playing the patient teacher. It had been a couple of months since Natasha had started working full-time on her project. The depths to which Hydra went to infiltrate S.H.I.E.L.D. was sickening. To some it would offer reward, revolution, or power. To others it would threaten the lives of their family. Not once would they not follow through with a threat, and so their power base grew uncontested and unknown. Natasha had the dubious honor of following people, meeting their contacts and finding out how far it went. When a viable target was found, Natasha would hold her gauntlet above them and activate the enchantment. Only the first couple of hundred were monitored, but everyone she tagged was followed on a giant globe which Harry had set up. He couldn't wait for Tony to integrate his systems with a magical counterpart. In the meanwhile, the portion of Jarvis that was on the mission with them would have them expand the area until he could pinpoint their location. When Harry was not on the mission, he was busy doing a bit of his own secret work. It would be a surprise for later, but he suspected it would come in handy pretty soon. He was busy on the island working on a side project that involved the Room of Requirement when he received the call. "Agent Hill, what's going on?" "They came for Fury. He's in critical condition. His last words to me were they are watching." Hill said, "I understand," Harry said before hanging up. He had been given very specific instructions, not that he intended to follow them. He geared up with little more than a thought, went invisible and apparated quite a ways up from where he felt Natasha. He then flew down and entered the building. It didn't take him long to find the people he was looking for. Steve, Natasha, and Hill were all watching. As they operated on Fury, Harry cast a security spell followed by a quick illusion of Natasha as he put a hand on her shoulder. She spun around and immediately embraced him. "Oh, Harry, tell me the toxin worked and he's not really dead. Please." Harry cast a spell at the director as slowly and gently as he could, not wanting to destroy any of the devices connected to Fury. The information he got back was not good but would put her mind at ease at least. "He's under but alive. He's not going to be happy when he wakes up though, I can tell that much." Natasha sighed and relaxed a little. "Why are you here? Not that I'm complaining. I felt you coming, but aren't you supposed to be waiting at phase 2? I've never been the sort to wait and do nothing." Harry said honestly, "What do we know? He was attacked as our intel stated. He was en route to his secondary safe house after escaping when he was attacked by someone who should not be here. Steve was already trailing him after I called him in, and the attacker ran after putting a couple of distinctive holes in Fury. Same as the one I had in my stomach until you fixed it. I think they defrosted the Winter Soldier." Natasha said. Harry thought about it and then nodded. "Okay, best get back to business. I'll be a call away," he said as she changed her body language back to the tension she was holding before and stepped into the illusion so that Harry could remove it. An hour later Harry picked up Fury's body, mid-transport, and deposited him on the couch in the Marauder's den. There he focused his magic and healed Fury's body. He would have some stiffness, but his life was no longer in danger and his bones were set and kept in place with magic. It would last until the bones had mostly healed, so it was just as good. Then he cast an enervate at Fury, who woke with a start and sat upright, hands flying to his many wounds only to find them closed. "You changed the plan," Fury said with some anger but allowing Harry to explain as he slowly sat up. "They did it first. I hear someone gave you the cold soldier." Harry joked. "Funny," Fury said with a straight face. "How are the others?" he then asked, meaning Natasha and Steve. Steve was called into HQ by Pierce. He decided to go against advice. He can get out by Portkey, so he'll be fine if push comes to shove. Worst case scenario, Ghost teleported him out. Harry reported. Once he's back, they'll be going to the base to spring that trap. Once everyone in the field is called in, and we know we have all the hostiles pinned down, I'll activate Sleeping Beauty. Harry pulled out his mirror and called up Hill. It took her a minute to answer, as it normally did when she was at HQ, but when she did, it was with a frown. "Agent Potter, Marauders," was all Harry said before he hung up. "That's a really bad name for a project," Fury groused. "Are you sure you got everyone?" he asked. "How many times are you going to ask? We got everyone we could find. Considering it was mostly only me and Natasha working on this for 3 months. Harry said, just as Hill appeared at the arrival point and looked up at Fury with a sigh of relief. "We have barely had the opportunity to sit down for a meal together thanks to you. And you will likely take more time off after you finish the job." Once national security is secured, we can take some time off on that island of yours. I hear it's a magical place. Fury deadpanned, while Hill nodded along, having wanted to go to the island for a while. Funny, Harry said back. Hill decided to speak up. Sorry to interrupt, but why did you deviate from the plan? I was also waiting for that answer. Fury nodded along. They changed their plan is not a good enough reason. Harry sighed. Natasha thinks the Winter Soldier is in play. I don't know where he is, and he's definitely not on the list of those invited to our party. So you need to wait for him to make an appearance and disable him first, Hill asked. That's about the gist of it, yes. I also didn't want him blowing up Fury's body in transit. Everybody knows about Fury's contingencies, Harry confirmed. Is Coulson aware and ready? He asked. He has the information and Agent May is ready. Once your project activates, they will handle the rest. Fury confirmed, then he smirked. Coulson asked me to ask you a favor. Apparently his team has been working hard, and he wants to give them some time on your island as a reward. Harry took it as a compliment that Fury could joke after he had taken liberties with the plan. As long as, he started. They sign a contract, I know. Coulson already requested standard island access contracts and a demonstration. Fury nodded. I think we can handle a couple of visitors for a couple of days to a week once this is over. I've even got a surprise for the next visitors to the island. Will you be among them? Harry asked. When's the last time you had a holiday anyway? Fury actually smirked at him. The last time America didn't have enemies to be protected from. I think Fury took a nap once, but I can't confirm it. Hill joked along as she drank the tea Harry had made for her. So never, Harry nodded. I'll have rooms ready for you as well then. Harry then opened a portal to France where the monitoring system was and led Fury and Hill through. She stayed for only long enough to finish her tea before returning to her post, not wanting to be noted as missing. They watched as Steve confronted the assailants in the elevator and made his escape. They watched as Steve and Natasha lured the agents to the mall, discovered the location of the base and escaped them using Natasha's stealth gear. They monitored all the action and watched until the rocket almost hit the base. That was when they hid from sight and used Natasha's portkey to return to Marauder's den. Harry and Fury had been ready and arrived just after them via portal. Well done, Fury said at the shocked-looking Steve. How? Steve asked until he saw Harry and sighed in relief. Natasha told me you were off helping Thor and were unavailable. Harry walked up to Steve, took his hand and shook it. Of course I'm helping. Sorry for not letting you in on this. Fury didn't trust your acting skills. Steve looked up at Fury, who only gave him a look, and Steve couldn't help but nod in understanding. He could accept that he was not a spy. He was a soldier, fair enough, he said, then he turned to Harry. Can I assume you have a plan? Actually, you need to tell me yours, Harry said. You need to do what you would have to draw out the enemy. Harry said, Harry is right. The soldier has never failed before and has never been caught. If we want to catch him, you'll need to act like you would have, starting by following whatever plan you would have made without our assistance. Fury stated. Sam Wilson was apparently Steve's first idea. He had been considering contacting him since he left the Triskelion. Harry had not heard of his unit before, but apparently Fury had. He kept what information he had to himself, though, to allow Steve to act and react normally. They captured a known Hydra operative after procuring Sam's wings, as Loki would have put it, and interrogated him using a strategy Loki would have approved of. Once they had the information, they started for SHIELD HQ, with Harry following them every step of the way, invisible, silenced, and flying. When Harry noticed a vehicle discreetly making its way over to his teammates, he got himself ready. He allowed the soldier to jump on the roof of their vehicle, but the moment he grabbed and threw the agent into oncoming traffic, Harry went to work. He cast a quick illusion of the man dying while catching him, knocking him out and sending him to a safe drop zone. Then he focused on the man dead set on killing his girl and one of his friends. He needed to remain secret as long as possible, so he tried disabling the mechanical arm first. It stopped working for only a second before apparently rebooting itself. Harry shrugged and transported him to a different safe drop zone with a wave of his hand, after casting an illusion to make it look like he was blown off by some kind of explosion from inside the car. He was sent to an enclosure on the island. It was meant for something much stronger, so he'd not be escaping. He lowered himself in through the window and took control of the car's steering with magic, since the soldier had pulled the steering wheel off. Hi, he said as he became visible only to those in the car, holding a hand out and jiggling it so they could see he was in control of the car when it swerved. Hi Sam, I'm Ghost. Tell me where to take us and I'll steer. You still have to control the gears and gas though. Sam was surprised as he looked at the new arrival but smiled. It's damn good to have you with us, he said as he looked over Harry's shoulder. Are you aware of the car following us? I was not, Harry said as Natasha fired a bullet into the grill of one of the vehicles following them. The stunning bullet was enchanted not to kill but knock out. The magic worked on electronics as magic usually does, and the car started slowing down as the engine died. But that's nothing to worry about. I need you to stop looking at me and start looking at the road though, since I'm invisible to anyone outside the car. We can explain away how you regained control, not why you were speaking to nobody. Sam quickly turned around and started acting like he was in control. How are you doing this, by the way? He asked. I'll tell you another time. Right now let's call it one of my powers. Harry said. Okay. Sam shrugged. Are the rest of the Avengers going to join us? He asked, having met 3 of them in the last week, 2 of which happened in the last couple of hours. Nah, this isn't big enough, Harry said nonchalantly after Natasha disabled another 2 cars who were catching up to them. Millions under threat isn't big enough, Sam asked incredulously. Yes, that's just another Tuesday for me. Harry joked. He wasn't necessarily telling the truth, but he wasn't lying either, considering how many his company had already helped. We can't have every evil organization think they warrant the full attention of the Avengers after all. So what's the plan? Steve asked. I'm assuming you have what you needed now that you took the soldier out. Harry nodded and said, you know what, you're right, let's go to HQ. I'm parking the car, Sam, we're leaving it behind. Steve looked at Harry and quickly stuck a hand in the glove compartment looking for the car's registration. When he found it, he pocketed it and looked at Harry. What? We stole this car. I need to make sure I fix it or repay them or something, he said. Harry laughed as they stopped off the side of the road after a turnoff. Never change, Steve. We might need a babysitter one day. Natasha smirked at him but said nothing. Okay, I've made it so we won't be noticed for a couple of minutes. Let's get out of here, he said as they all got out, and Harry watched as Sam pulled his flight suit from the car. Sam watched as Ghost lifted one hand, pointer and pinky fingers extended, palm up, and turned his hand like one would turn a key until his palm was pointing down. The next moment a circle appeared out of nowhere, and everyone went through what seemed to be a portal. On the other side they found themselves in a bar with a sign above it saying Marauder's Den. Standing in the middle of the room was Nick Fury. He had been listening to the situation through Harry's wrist-mounted mirror, though he never uncovered his mirror just in case some camera got lucky. How are we looking, Ghost? Did you ice the soldier? Fury asked. Wow, these jokes just never stop, do they? Harry asked. He's where we keep the dangerous animals, he said. Good, we wouldn't want him to escape. Fury nodded in approval. Are we going to rain on Pierce's parade? He asked with a predatory smile. I don't see why not, Harry said. He opened another portal, stepped through, and came back with the last of his inventions. It was a control rod which connected to the orbs and threw them to the people who were spelled by Natasha's bracer. He then pulled out a pitch-black flying carpet and stepped onto it. It started floating an inch off the floor. Are you coming? He asked. Everyone stepped on, but Harry grabbed Sam by the arm. If you're coming, you'll need to leave any tech you don't want destroyed behind. My powers can be uncompromising when your tech isn't specifically shielded, Sam grumbled, but dropped his flight suit and cell phone on the couch, much to Fury's annoyance. But how was the man to know it was his favorite place to nap? We're coming back for that, he stated. No problem, Sam, we can come for a drink once we finish this business off. Just be quiet, okay? We'll be doing some unexpected things, and it would be very bad if you screamed while we are invisible, Harry warned, before activating first his privacy spells and then the portkey to shield HQ. Sam did not look happy when they landed, but kept his mouth shut for now. Harry flew them up to one of the windows and saw Pierce screaming into his phone at whoever was on the other side. He silenced an area and apparated the carpet and its passengers into the area. Mean you can't find them? You had the soldier and a full convoy. How are both the soldier and the targets just missing? Harry held up a hand and indicated for everyone to stay where they are. We are silenced here, but let's keep talking to a minimum. We need him to recall all his forces to prepare for our attack when he realizes they can't find us. Once they are all in the facility, we can activate the countermeasure, Harry whispered to the rest. Fury looked about ready to ignore his advice for a moment before controlling his temper and nodding. He'd rather not have any innocent bystanders suffer because he had an itchy trigger finger. They waited for another 10 minutes and were relieved when Pierce recalled all the teams to base. He wanted them prepared just in case Steve got outside help. Another half-hour later and the teams were all assembled and ready. Pierce got feedback that the council members would be there in an hour, just before the launch of the carriers. Fury decided to move now, before the council could arrive. They had a quick discussion about what should happen next, and confirmed that Harry had everything in hand before Fury stepped off the carpet. Good morning, Secretary Pierce, he said when he knew he'd be visible again. He showed no hint of fear as he walked to the desk and sat down opposite his enemy as if he was expecting a cup of coffee. How are you doing today? He asked. Pierce, after schooling his features, moved a hand to his panic button but found he couldn't touch it. As if his hand refused to move to it, he He gave up and smiled at Fury. "Good morning. Did you get my flowers?" As Fury and Pierce had a nice conversation, Harry was not idle. He sent Natasha off to the helicarriers with their backup plan, which would have them target each other, should they reach the correct height to activate their systems. She could not be invisible since that might fry the tech, but Harry transfigured her clothes and added an illusion over her face before sending her off to one helicarrier at a time. Sam and Steve were Fury's backup, since Natasha didn't need it and they probably couldn't pull it off as well as she could anyway. The idea that Harry needed backup at this point and in this situation was basically laughable. Harry listened to their conversation and watched the mirror which Natasha kept open for him. Once she was done with one carrier, she'd show him where to open the next portal and continue her part. The conversation soon came to the point. "What do you think you're going to do, Nick? Did you get one of your pet ghosts to drop you off and go for the helicarriers?" Pierce asked. At Fury's look, he chuckled. "Yes, we know about them. We haven't been able to get to one of them, but once everything here is under our control, it won't be difficult to replace your people with ours." When Fury smirked, he asked, "What's so funny? If you knew how ridiculous you sounded, you'd be laughing too." Fury said, "If I had secret agents with stealth and transportation capabilities on par with Ghost, I'd be damn sure they couldn't betray me even if they wanted to, don't you think?" Pierce's eye twitched. "If you had that capability, there would be no Hydra in S.H.I.E.L.D. I've recently upgraded my skill set." Fury stated easily. "That doesn't matter though, because your time here has come to an end," he said as he got up and walked to a window. "Come look at what your precious Hydra looks like when they go up against me and my people." As Fury said this, Harry readied himself. He took the rod in hand and lifted the other hand to the side, pinky and pointer extended. Natasha was back from the last carrier already and took out her gun, just in case Harry lost control of any of his other magics like the carpet or the privacy spells. Pierce got up and cautiously walked to the window and looked down, seeing only what he was supposed to. People working at their assigned jobs and his personnel keeping an eye out for the intruders who were already in his office. He had no doubt that Fury was not alone in his office, even if he couldn't spot anyone. Harry activated the rod and a pulse of magic was suddenly released, activating the potential locked in the spells that had been layered on every Hydra agent over the last 3 months. He specifically chose to leave Pierce out of it, for Fury's sake. He twisted his other hand and opened a portal into the comms room for Steve to go make an announcement. As Pierce watched, he saw one of his men collapse, and then 2 others. Suddenly most of the staff on the ground were on the floor, seemingly unconscious. Then he heard the voice of Steve Rogers over the intercom system. "Good morning, members of S.H.I.E.L.D. This is Steve Rogers. I'm broadcasting this message to explain what is going on right now." He began. Pierce suddenly had a sinking feeling and he looked up at Fury. "Those are all my men, aren't they? How long have you known?" "Long enough to plan for it," Fury replied. "I didn't want to believe it, but once I interrogated a few of your men using a new truth serum I have access to, I couldn't deny it anymore." "None of my men were interrogated. They would have reported it," Pierce denied. "If they remembered it, maybe," Fury said with a smirk. "I've had you and your people under constant observation for months now. Every single one of you will be tried under truth serum. We will find out about every single one of your people, whether they are programmed or simply biding their time. We will find out about your crimes. I realize this will take years, but that does not mean we won't root out every single person and bring them to justice." Fury promised. "You can never stop Hydra." Pierce smiled. "Cut off one," he started before falling over like the rest of his people had. "Sorry," Harry said. "I've heard that line too many times. Besides, what if it's the voice command that starts a self-destruct sequence? I wouldn't put it past him," Fury said with a look of relief and disappointment on his face. It was a strange look. Harry opened the portal again when he heard Steve's announcement end. He had informed those who were still conscious that the people who had passed out were all Hydra agents and that they needed to be taken into custody. Many people didn't want to believe it, but every single person moved at Steve's command. None had believed he would betray them. Harry took out 5 cylinders and handed them out. Then he took a disc out of the bottom and placed it on Pierce's prone form, making sure they were all watching. He tapped it twice and stepped back. A moment later, Pierce floated up, was enveloped in a cocoon of energy, and then he disappeared. "What the hell?" Sam asked. "Stasis field and emergency evacuation. I've been working on it for a while now. It puts a person in stasis, even if they are moments from dying, and transports them to a safe location where they can be kept indefinitely until care can be given. It was meant to be used in emergencies to save lives, but I suppose it serves the same purpose with this," Harry said slightly unhappily. "How did you figure it out?" Natasha asked. "I know you've been struggling with it for months now. Something to do with the difference between living tissue and inanimate objects. I was looking in the wrong place. I was trying to induce stasis like I did for food. Turns out I just needed to isolate them from the normal flow of time. It's like creating a vacuum, only a bit more complicated and using, different forms of energy. For them it's like we are moving really, really fast so they aren't completely frozen, just going forward very slowly. Harry explained. Does the same thing though, he shrugged. Natasha hugged him with a huge smile on her face. I don't care what Tony calls himself, you are a genius, this will save so many lives. Harry smiled at her. That was the original goal, yes. I can see a use for these in other situations. As well, Fury said as they started out of the office, and that's what I feared. Harry said, cocking his head to the side, having expected that. These are yours and I know you'll have contracts involved with anything you supply. S.H.I.E.L.D., Fury said as they made it to the elevator. If S.H.I.E.L.D. survives this, Harry put in, you remember the good senator who is part of Hydra? Yes, Fury asked. What happens when he gets tried? Harry asked. He doesn't, Fury replied. He's protected by law. What? Harry asked calmly, dangerously. He's getting away with it. Oh, I don't think so. We may not be able to take him in, but he will not get through this unscathed. Fury said, not good enough. Harry said darkly. Leave him to me then, I'll sort him out properly. But that brings us back to what happens to S.H.I.E.L.D. when the truth gets out. Natasha said, this is too big not to. Steve was nodding alongside her. The world needs S.H.I.E.L.D., we have no choice in the matter. Fury said, if anything this situation just proves it. And what if you can have the organization without a new Cappy Council on the other end of your strings? Harry asked, not looking at him. Fury thought about it for a moment before asking, what did you have in mind? Later. Harry said as the elevator doors opened up to a large control room. It seemed the entire room was armed and guns were pointed at them until they saw Fury. At which point all of them were pointed away instantly, while many people sighed in relief. Okay people, Fury started, I know there is no protocol for this, but you can move the unconscious to central locations at least. As Fury said it, Harry walked to one of the downed men and placed a disc on him, before tapping it and having the man disappear with the golden glow of the stasis field. You heard the director. Hill's voice rang out seconds later when people stared at the spot the man had been. She had a black eye and a split lip. Apparently she had stood her ground and been assaulted for her effort. The way everyone jumped when she spoke showed Harry how much respect people had for her. I want someone at comms right now. Get the prisoners to a central location for Ghost to secure. Harry smiled and walked to her. She cocked her head to the side when he lifted a hand and held it over her wounds. A couple of seconds later it was healed and Harry turned to walk away, only for her to place a hand on his shoulder. Thank you, she said. He nodded and continued on his way, noting that the others had started taking prisoners as well. Sam especially seemed to like walking up to a new person and transporting them away. If only it was this easy when I was with the unit. Harry heard him mumble. If you end up joining us, I'll get you your own. Harry said, indicating the disc dispenser. Join? Sam asked. Steve walked up to him and nodded. I agree, he's got potential. We'll have to see how he works in a team, but from the little I've seen, he's at least capable. I only caught one guy, which she threw off a building. Sam objected, pointing at Natasha. And what's your point? Harry asked. You were there when Steve needed backup. If nothing else, that proved you to me. And if you don't like the action, we could always use someone who can render medical extractions. Steve shook his head. No, he's a fighter, I can tell. He said before moving off to continue rounding up people. Natasha approached Harry. We need to leave and let the others take care of these. I'd like to check the globe and see who we missed. I doubt an organization like Hydra ever puts all their eggs in one basket. You should probably stop by the other facilities as well. Fury spoke up from where he had been sending the next person off. We've got the other branches and the secure detention facilities who don't know what's going on. They do now. Hill spoke up, dropping her hand from her ear where she must have had a comms unit. They are putting everyone that went down in lockdown. Thanks for that, Harry said to Hill before turning back to Natasha. We always knew we wouldn't get them all right off the bat. The idea was to get everyone that was associated with S.H.I.E.L.D. first. He said. I do see your point, however, and thanks for the reminder. He walked back to Hill and held up the cylinder. Can you handle this while Agent Romanoff and I go check for any missing enemies and clear out the other secure facilities? Hill took it and nodded. Just place and double tap, she asked, having seen it a couple of times now. Yes, Harry said, but no letting it out of your sight. This is proprietary technology. Understood. Hill nodded and resolved not to delegate the job. Even Fury was busy sending off Hydra agents himself. Harry walked back to Natasha, offered her an arm and activated a portkey to the monitoring room in France. Once there, they quickly confirmed the few stragglers. Jarvis, the mission is almost complete. If you can start the scrubbing process, please. Of course, Harry, I should be through the data in the next day or two. Can I assume you'll plug me in when that is complete? Jarvis asked. No problem, Jarvis. We just need to be sure none of this data can get out first. You can put everything we need on the backup drives in duplicate, please. And then I'll open a portal and set up a fiber connection with Malibu so you can reconnect, just like we discussed. Harry said to the AI, "Is it just me or are you eager to reconnect?" While it has been an interesting diversion to no longer run everything at Stark Industries and be able to focus on one task, this system is not nearly as strong as I am used to. I feel limited. Jarvis admitted. Harry laughed. "Sorry about that, my friend. I'll stop by tomorrow evening to check on your progress." "Okay. Thank you, Harry," Jarvis said. They were soon on their way to the first target. Fortunately, the missing people were easy to find. They were all unconscious after all. There was one uncomfortable situation where a pair were both knocked out during an intimate moment. Harry had covered them both with blankets and sent them off in stasis. Fortunately, that was the only case of nudity. Harry was glad he hadn't caught anyone in the bathroom. Once everyone on the list was secured, they went to the other secure facilities, looked for whoever was in charge and gave them the abbreviated version. When they were done picking up the downed agents from those sites, they returned to HQ and found Fury, Sam, Steve, and Hill being questioned by the council. "Did I miss something?" he asked. "Ghost, I'm told you took SHIELD agents to an undisclosed secure facility." An older, balding white man stated, "We demand that you return them to us." "Oh, you're demanding now, are you?" Harry asked. "You want your SHIELD agents back? Sure thing, just turn around and walk into the building behind you. All your SHIELD agents are there. I've only taken the Hydra agents into custody." "You know damn well what I mean," he snarled. "We are the council. We will decide if they are guilty, not you. What right have you to incarcerate these people without a trial?" "What right? What right?" Harry repeated, purposefully releasing a sliver of his power. The visible aura and flash of his eyes scared the man so much he stumbled back and landed on his rear. "What right do you have? These people were planning to kill 20 million people worldwide. Anyone that would make a difference if they stood against Hydra would be dead in a matter of hours." Harry walked up to the shaking man and squatted close to him and asked softly, "Would you be alive if they completed their plan? Would you pose enough of a threat for the system to kill you and your family, just in case they decided to avenge their father and husband? Or would the system deem you unimportant and leave you and yours alone?" Then Harry got up and looked at the other three council members. "Do you have his short-sighted perspective of the world as well? Or do you see that we just saved the world from the tyranny that your pet project would have wrought?" Two of the council members looked down, but the third, an older British lady by the looks of her, stood straight. "We won't deny that you believe what you say. I myself am inclined to believe it, considering what we have learned so far from Director Fury and Captain Rogers," she said. "We do, however, have the right to demand to witness the trial of the agents you have taken into custody." Harry reined in his power and smiled, not that she could see it. "Of course, Councilwoman. Please, let me escort you and your associates to a secure location where I will produce Secretary Pierce so that he can be questioned," Harry said as he led them into the HQ building with the rest of the team following. Harry led them into a boardroom, and once everyone had entered, he looked at Fury. "Is this room clean?" he asked. "One moment," Fury said as he walked to a wall and tapped it. A panel appeared and he typed in a code followed by a button that disabled all the feeds from the room and enabled the anti-eavesdropping technology. "We're clean," he said. The councilman noted that Fury seemed to be referring to this man and paid close attention. When he pointed at a wall, they looked and saw as an opening seemed to form leading to somewhere else. "Is that a portal?" the same councilwoman asked. "It is, but not like the one Loki used, and this one leads to the secure facility," Harry said as he walked to the portal. "Follow me if you please." "You can't be serious," the Middle Eastern-looking fellow said. "You want us to go with you to an unnamed location just because you said so?" "Yes," Harry replied, stopping by the portal. "If you want to speak to Secretary Pierce, now is your only opportunity." Then he walked through, followed by the rest of the team except for Steve, who stood by the door. "I give you my word that Ghost will do you no harm. He is a good man," Steve said with a kind smile. The councilmen took a moment to look at each other, but when the British lady started walking to the portal, they followed suit. As soon as everyone was through, they looked around. They seemed to be in the lobby of a large, modern office building. "Where are we?" the same councilwoman asked. "Welcome to EPI. That's short for Earth Protection Initiative. This will be the headquarters of a new organization I have founded that will use technology, such as the portal you just used, to deliver support and protection around the world for people who need it. We will have a research and development department, specifically aimed at creating better defenses for the Earth, from extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional threats. We have formed a close partnership with Potter Innovations, which is why their initials forms 2/3 of this organization's own, as the majority donor. As a company already dedicated to global peace and support, Our agendas align completely. Mr. Potter has graciously allowed me to assign my own staff and security force, since he understands my need for discretion and prefers not to step on any toes. Harry finished this part of the speech. He had been leading them through a maze of hallways, continuing down the entire way. When they reached the bottom, Harry opened a door and looked inside. "Please wait here while I prepare the room for you." Then he went inside and in under a minute returned. He then led them in and seated them in comfortable chairs, charmed specifically for that purpose. They had a view into an interview room with a metallic table with rails to tie the cuffs to and chairs on both sides. "We will hold the interview here and you can watch from there. If you want to ask a question, please let me know, as I will be with you when the interview starts," Harry said as he turned to Fury. "If you would follow me," he said, and walked out of the viewing room and led Fury to a corner. "A lot of what you saw there was just temporary conjuration. It should only last a couple of hours to a day, but that will be good enough for now," he said as he opened another portal and led Fury through. On the other side was the stasis evacuation point. There were rows upon rows of people, all still in their gear and apparently asleep. They looked dead with how they weren't visibly breathing. "When did you set this up?" Fury asked as Harry walked towards the first delivery point where Pierce was. "Over the last 3 months I started purchasing sites around the world and securing them. Only a few people will know how to enter and exit, and everybody will be signing a contract to protect both the people who work here and anything they learn. There will be zero chance of infiltration. The contract will hold multiple penalties, including temporary knowledge loss for people who are coerced." It reached Pierce and Harry ran a scan over him for technology and poisons. "Really, a false tooth with poison? Even I've seen that in movies." Harry scoffed as he vanished the tooth right out of his mouth and healed the resulting wound. Then he levitated the man in front of him. "Anyway, I'd like to tell you more, but I'm afraid you don't have high enough clearance," Harry said with a straight face. Fury looked at Harry in shock before a genuine smile crossed his face. "Is this your recruitment speech?" he asked. "Is it working?" Harry returned. "Maybe. I need to see the benefits package first." Fury replied, "Every facility will be equipped with a room of requirement for training which can only be accessed and operated by the respective branch manager and the director of international operations, who will function as the general manager," Harry said with a twinkle in his eyes. "Said director would also have access to his very own, if slightly smaller room which will be protected by its own Fidelius. Damn you, Potter, you know how much I want one of those." Fury cursed. "I can imagine. You'd finally have a place you can rest in complete security with whatever comfort you may desire at any given moment." Harry smiled. "Call it a perk of the position. I take care of my people." Before they could step back through the portal, Fury stopped Harry. "And what is your real goal here, Harry?" he asked. Harry could not remember the last time Fury had used his given name. "Honestly," Harry asked. When Fury nodded, Harry allowed the portal to close. "I want you to come work for me. I want you to disband S.H.I.E.L.D. and form this new agency with me, bringing what personnel you can convince to follow you with you. If you were here running things, I wouldn't have to worry about who you answer to. I also want you to convince the council that it is a good idea to back Ep9, even if they won't hold any real say. That way they feel like they have oversight and can smooth things over with the UN. Meanwhile, they get contracted into keeping our secrets and we give them some time on New Atlantis or another island as incentive. By the time we've cured their parents' Alzheimer's and arthritis, they will throw their full support behind us and help us expand until we are what S.H.I.E.L.D. was always meant to be." Harry finished. Fury looked at him for a full minute before answering. "You've put some thought into this." "Only since New York," Harry said easily. "I can see why," Fury said in a monotone voice. "I can't disband S.H.I.E.L.D. It's a government agency overseen by the UN, but I'll tell you what. We start this project on the side and get the wheels rolling. Once everything is operational, I'll hand in my resignation and take over here." "No deal," Harry said instantly. "When I put someone in charge here, I need to know they believe in what we're building from the start. I need that person invested in the future of this world enough to make that choice instantly. If you don't give me the yes this company deserves right from the beginning, I won't ever have the same faith in you that I could right now." With that, Harry turned the portal into being again and walked through with Pierce hovering in front of him. He walked into the interrogation room and looked at the mirror. "Sorry for the wait. Pierce had a poison capsule in a tooth. I needed to take it out first." Then he pointed at the floating Pierce. "You'll notice that he seems to not be breathing. That's what the stasis device does. He's basically suspended. This technology was developed for emergency services. A person who is in pain or dying can be brought to be treated without fear that there isn't a doctor immediately available. Surgeons can be made ready before the stasis is removed. No worry of dying because of blood loss. This is a device developed here at EPI in conjunction with Potter Innovations. Another breakthrough, though this one was entirely from Potter Innovations' Medical Research Division. is a truth serum with a 100% success rate. Administer 3 drops orally and the person cannot lie for up to an hour. Harry said as he poured a glass of water and added 3 drops, before removing the disc from Pierce and stepping out of the room. Once Fury stepped in, cuffs in hand, Harry cast a couple of spells at Pierce. Then he went to the viewing room where Sam, Natasha, Steve and the council were waiting. The spells worked as advertised and Pierce woke with a raspy throat and the confundus made him forget for a moment that he was a captive, even after Fury cuffed him to the table as he drank the water greedily. He refilled the glass from the decanter and sat back, drinking another half glass with a sigh. Fury just smiled and started questioning him. "Are you a member of Hydra?" "Yes," was Pierce's automatic reply. After that the council were believers. Fury got him to reveal everything he could think of, including names of government officials that were also part of Hydra. Natasha was taking notes dutifully. An hour later, when the potion wore off, Harry stepped into the interview room, stunned Pierce, placed him in stasis again and allowed him to disappear to the receiving room. Needless to say, the council were disturbed. "How could you let this happen, Director Fury?" the balding man asked. "You're supposed to protect the world from organizations like Hydra. Didn't you hear him, man? Hydra has been part of S.H.I.E.L.D. for nearly 70 years. He couldn't have known if he wanted to." The Brit said. "How did you end up finding out, though? You were obviously prepared when this all started." "Another Potter Innovations invention, but I'm afraid I had to sign contracts that make it impossible for me to discuss their products outside of controlled circumstances," Fury said easily. "If these inventions can save millions of lives, surely it should be released to the World Security Council," one of the men asked. "I'm afraid not," Fury said with barely contained joy at being able to give the council the finger, figuratively speaking, because of certain choices regarding nukes in Manhattan. PI has specifically stated that should any of their products be released to you, they will stop rendering any support to any agency outside of their own control. "I would tell you, but I like my toys too much." "And why does Potter trust you?" a councilman asked. "Because I've proven myself trustworthy whenever I can, even if I am forced to make difficult decisions which people disagree with," Fury stated with a hard look. "We get it, we should have listened to you," one of them said. "Yes, you should have," Fury said. Harry stepped up and said, "If you don't mind, I've got other responsibilities, as I'm sure you do, and if I don't let you out, I'm afraid the systems here would make it, quite literally, impossible for you to leave." With this he turned a new portal into being and led them through into the same boardroom they had left from. "Before you leave," Fury said to everyone in the room, "there is one last thing." He looked at Harry and nodded. "Effective immediately, I'm resigning my post as Director of S.H.I.E.L.D. "What?" nearly everybody asked. "Why?" the Brit asked. "I've had enough of answering to people who want results without action. I want to be part of the solution, not the problem. I've been offered a similar position in a different organization. I believe they will be more successful in the mission S.H.I.E.L.D. was meant to be on," Fury said as he removed his badge and placed it on the table. "Fortunately, I was already declared dead and removed from the system, so that makes this much easier." He smiled. Hill stepped forward, removing her own badge and dropped it on the table next to Fury's. "I've been offered the same. I told them I go nowhere without Fury." Hill looked at Fury and he nodded in thanks for her loyalty. "You can't do this. Without you, S.H.I.E.L.D. will fall apart," one of the councilmen said. "Have you not noticed? S.H.I.E.L.D. has already fallen apart. Hydra was recruiting at all 3 academies. We only have Ghost and PI to thank for stopping them in time. Now that trust has been broken, people will refuse to return there. With so many key roles vacant and no new recruits, what do you think will become of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Fury asked. "But the world needs S.H.I.E.L.D. One of them said again. "No, the world needs Nick Fury, in charge of good agents and better technology," Harry said. "With PI's public support of EPI, I think people will trust them more easily at this point." Harry paused and looked at them speculatively before continuing. "I have pull with Mr. Potter. I can get a meeting scheduled for you, but you'll have to convince him that you can be useful. At this point, I don't think he thinks he needs you. Perhaps if you can cut through the red tape at the UN and get him official backing, that might change his opinion of you, but I don't know the guy that well." Harry lied easily. He noticed Steve was struggling to contain a smile. He subtly cast a calming charm on him. "Nobody knows Potter. He's reclusive, likes his research and experiments. Nice enough guy, I guess, if a bit eccentric." Fury said. "We used him as a consultant for a bit, but ended up using someone more focused on our priorities." "We'd heard," the Brit said. "It's at least worth considering. If the sun really is setting on S.H.I.E.L.D., maybe it's time for it to rise on something new. New ideas and techniques with tried and trusted leaders." There was silence for a moment when Harry's mirror vibrated. "Ghost here," Harry answered. Coulson looked at him in his gear and instantly knew he was in character. "Ghost, good to see you in one piece. Thanks for the heads up, by the way. We just landed at the rendezvous point. Come pick up the luggage, please. There are some people here who would like to thank you too," He smiled that smile of his. I'll be there in 5. He looked up. Anyone interested in saying hi to some old friends? He got a bunch of nods in return. He looked back at the mirror. I'm bringing friends. See you in 5. Coulson said and closed the connection. Is there anything else? Harry asked the councilwoman. She had become his favorite of the group, not because she was British, but because she had a backbone and didn't try to make unreasonable demands of him. How can we contact you? To set up that meeting, I mean, she asked. Contact Fury. He's always been my contact at S.H.I.E.L.D. He can get hold of me. Harry said easily. Remember, if you want access to Potter's tech, you have to keep it a secret. The portals I use is his tech. Do not let it get out. That's the quickest way to burn that bridge, he said before he left. The rest bid the council farewell and left them to their discussion. Before Fury left, he had them stop by the control room and removed one of the activation keys for insight. That would stop activation for at least a month, while they rewired the carriers to start without them or to replace them. Harry held out an arm and everyone grabbed hold. They soon arrived in a stretch of desert next to an airplane. The moment they arrived, the rear hatch opened and Coulson walked down, followed closely by his team. Director Ghost Captain Romanoff, it's good of you to join us. We have some uninvited guests aboard. Fortunately, they all seem to have decided to take a nap. Coulson greeted. Agent Coulson, it's been too long. You don't write, you don't call. You scarcely ever come over for poker night anymore. Harry joked. Poker night was a code phrase for meeting at the Marauder's Den. I've been busy. Coulson replied. Care to take our guests off our hands? Sure, Harry said and pulled out a cylinder, handing it to Sam. Agent Coulson, meet Sam Wilson. He's considering joining the team, he said before turning back to Sam. You don't mind, do you? I'd like to catch up with my friend for a bit. No problem, Sam said as he was led inside by Agent May, closely followed by a curious Fitz and Simmons. What's in the cylinder? Fitz asked before disappearing into the bus. So I hear you caught everyone before they could cause any major damage. Coulson said, I'd love to know how you did that. Trade secret, Agent Coulson. I'd tell you, but then I'd have saved your life for nothing. Harry joked. Is this what I have to look forward to working for you? Fury asked, shaking his head. If you were working for me, you'd not be able to make statements like that, Harry said with a straight face. Fortunately, we will have a partnership. I was not kidding when I said I don't want you answering to anyone. I suspect that you will have all kinds of redundant paperwork for me, just like I'm sure I'll drive you mad in other ways. What's this? Coulson asked, shocked. Ghost decided to start his own agency. Chances are S.H.I.E.L.D. is done for after everything from Hydra comes to light. We'll be interviewing prisoners under truth serum for months. When Hydra is completely uprooted though, I'll rest easy for the first time in months. Fury said, an agency with Ghost resources and you at the head. Coulson asked, where do I sign up? You're at the top of the list, Phil. You and your team, that is. Harry said, that reminds me. I hear you put in an unofficial request for a vacation on the island. I appreciate the priority. It would be nice to work out of a central location again. Coulson said, and yes, the team has had a rough while. You know about some of it, especially when you came in to heal Sky. Most recently, Sif helped us take down another Asgardian with seduction powers. She seduced Agent Grant, who turned out to be one of Hydra's, as you know. I'll have to catch up with Sif soon. We've not had a chat in a while. As for the new agency, I've got a whole lot of goodies planned and I think you'll like most of them, Harry said, looking over Coulson's shoulder at the young woman he had healed who was trying to come closer, unnoticed. Of course, getting to the island will be difficult without permission slips. Harry said. Coulson knew he meant contracts. They won't have a problem with that. Fitz and Simmons might never want to leave the island though, especially with what can be found there. And Sky seems to be quite the fan of yours. She's been going on about your capabilities and guessing what the common factor is. She hasn't gotten very close yet. You knew, Sky exclaimed, having come close enough to hear that last part. You knew and you didn't tell me. Coulson gave Harry a look, trying to see the smile he knew was there. I'm not at liberty to discuss that information. It is beyond your clearance level. As soon as he said it, he looked up at Harry. Wait, at your agency will I have the same clearance level? Probably higher, Harry said, with the way I'm hoping to set things up with the slips I mean. The information will be safe no matter who knows. We'll just use more restrictive protocols for higher level access for those who need access. Coulson followed that and understood it to mean the contracts will become more comprehensive. It does make things simpler. As soon as someone has a slip, they won't have to worry about even accidentally giving things away. You're talking like that on purpose, aren't you? You're replacing words to keep secrets, Sky said. Does it have to do with your powers? She asked Harry excitedly. She's a sharp one, isn't she? Harry asked, not answering the question. Sharp enough to know that she won't get answers we don't want to give. Coulson nodded. Oh, come on, Sky complained. Okay, tell me what I just did, Harry asked, casting a cheering charm on Sky. I don't care, Sky suddenly exclaimed. I'm meeting Ghost, can I have a selfie? She asked, taking a phone out of her pocket, and looked at him hopefully. You can try, Harry said with some humor as she stood next to him and took a picture. Oh come on, Skye exclaimed again when she saw Harry was blurry in the picture as he was in all footage of him in his armor. Why do you never take a good photo? Harry cast a calming charm on her and sighed. Is she always this excitable? He asked. She's not. Otherwise, I'd have warned you before you healed her, Cowlson said with a straight face. That was you? Skye asked, suddenly very in control of her emotions. Thank you, I was sure I would die. Then she looked troubled, though I would think I'd remember meeting you before. Not a problem, and I choose when I'm remembered. Healing you had the price of your memory of the occasion. I try to keep my involvement to a minimum, otherwise people will start to expect my help for every little thing, Harry said as Cowlson's prank failed when Skye calmed down. That's simply not fair, Cowlson said at her lack of reaction. From Phil's reaction. I'm guessing you had a hand in my sudden chill. Were you also responsible for my fangirl impression? Skye asked shamelessly. No, your esteem of me is responsible for that. Your excitable moment and calm was affected by something I did though, Harry said, glad she had calmed down. If you figure it out before you come and visit my island for your holiday, I'll give you a reward. I'll happily take that reward then, she said confidently as she walked away to go do some research with the new information. Are you sure that was wise? Fury asked. Phil trusts her, was Harry's simple response. She's a good kid, Phil agreed. Just then Fitz and Simmons came running out of the plane. Okay, I know that was not human science. Are you an alien? Fitz asked as they approached Ghost. I was born on Earth from human parents as far as I know, Harry said. He almost said England, but realized that might be giving too much away and nobody could hear his accent while his mask was up. Then how do you explain a simple metal disc changing the flow of time and teleporting an unconscious person to a secure facility? It's impossible, Fitz demanded. How does teleportation work? Harry asked. Teleportation doesn't exist, Simmons put in. It's science fiction. Then what does science fiction say? Harry asked. Molecular deconstruction and reconstruction, Fitz offered. Wormholes, Simmons offered. Faster than light travel, maybe. It would seem instant at least, Fitz offered again. Harry laughed and placed a hand on both their shoulders and apparated them to the other side of the plane and back. How about you tell me? Both of them lost their lunch. Oops, Harry said. Don't abuse my geniuses, Cowlson reprimanded as he stepped to the two and offered Simmons a handkerchief. I don't abuse Banner or Stark, so do me the same courtesy. First off, wow, those are some big shoes to fill. Secondly, I was only showing them that they were not open-minded enough, Harry said. I didn't think they'd lose it. You guys did kind of use the wrong word in front of him. Ghost does not believe in impossible, he finds it limiting. Cowlson reprimanded them. Wormhole. Simmons got out when she was able to speak again. Fitz was just nodding along. Definitely a wormhole. It felt like I was compressed to a pinprick and then kicked out the other side. Fitz looked up and asked with a hoarse voice, but how? Cowlson will have the proper paperwork in the next couple of days. We'll probably be at the island this evening already. It's been a rough couple of months for us too, Harry said. You want to find out how? Be on the island. Are all the prisoners secure? Cowlson asked. As far as I know, Sam said, unless there's someone else you've got packed away in a cupboard. That should be everyone then. Now if you'll excuse us, we've got a clairvoyant to find, Phil said, turning around and starting to lead his people into the plane. No need. Fury said, we picked him up today. He was Hydra, wasn't even enhanced. Seriously, who was it? Phil asked as he stopped in his tracks. Garrett, Fury said. Damn, he completely fooled us. Cowlson said, you can be the one to interrogate him if you want. I know he's been one of your sore spots for a while now. Fury offered, just give it a bit of time. I'm about to build a whole new agency from the ground up with Ghost's help. In the meanwhile, take it easy. Once the new shield is up and running, I'll be keeping you busy. What will you be doing until Ghost has had the opportunity to rest? Cowlson asked after nodding. What do you think I'll be doing? There's a spot on that island with my name on it, and I intend to be there as long as I can, Fury said before looking at Harry. Something tells me things will get busy once I take the reins of an international peacekeeping organization funded by this trouble magnet. Natasha smirked. He's not wrong. You're all comedians, Harry said. Okay. Let's break this up. He took Cowlson's hand. I'm glad you came through that okay, and I'll see you in a couple of days. Goodbye, Ghost. See you soon, Phil said. Harry held his arms out and everyone that was going with him took hold. Fitz just shook his head. I can't believe anyone would do that to themselves willingly. After they disappeared, Cowlson replied, you get used to it. I don't even get dizzy anymore. What's going to bother you later is that he has other methods of instant transportation, one of which is entirely without strange sensations and doesn't have the side effect of ruining your tech. What? Both Fitz and Simmons exclaimed, Fitz lifting a dead device from his pocket. Did Wilson warn you to keep your distance while he was transporting the prisoners out? Cowlson asked. They nodded. Did you? Fitz shook his head. Then it was probably fried already anyway. When Harry and his party landed at Marauder's Den, Harry offered to take Sam home first. I'm not invited to the island, Sam asked. One day, Harry assured him. Right now there are people that need it more. Sure, Sam said easily as he walked to the couch to pick up his equipment. Harry opened a portal to his house after Sam provided him with a memory and he stepped through. We'll be in contact, Fury said through the opening just as it closed. Okay. Who's coming along and who do I need to send elsewhere? Harry asked. I think I'm staying at HQ for a couple of days to help sort things out. I'll have your first people ready by the time you come get me. Hill said, I'm assuming you still want me in HR until we're up and running. That's right, after that I'm sure Fury will want his right hand back. Harry said, you've got that right. Fury nodded at her. It'll be good to continue working with you, Hill. You too, sir, Hill said with a smile. Then she turned to Harry. I can go to my drop point on my own. I'll contact you on the mirror and meet you here when I'm ready to come to you. Good luck, Harry said just before she activated her port key. Steve, are you coming? Steve thought about it for a bit before shaking his head. I'm going to take a rain check on that. I've got some things to take care of. Then Steve stepped back and activated his own port key. Harry looked at Fury and before he could ask, Fury said, just open the portal. I've got everything I need on me and anything I don't you can make. Harry smiled and complied. He opened the portal and they stepped through to some much needed rest.